He went real.
Right.
He went real. You know the books that they sell in the CVS and the corner, like he went real romance novel with it. And I was like, wow, look at that dude. Sunez like, and then. It took a turn.
I didn't mean to be so dark. Yeah. Well, but those beats are very grimy, you know what I'm saying? I can't be all lovey-dovey and all that shit.
So is the beat sometimes? Do you write to the beat sometimes?
I let the beat take me on the cadence that I'll use.
Okay.
But I don't let the music tell me what I want to say. I always have ideas of what I want to say.
The way you spit like you write without the beat and then catch the right beat that fits with your rhyme.
Right.
That's how I grew up.
Yeah, I kind of tailor because I have a lot of things I want to say, so I'm gonna say them anyway. And a lot of times, Kamal is giving me the frameworks of songs, so I'm going with his framework too, and going off that. You know what I'm saying?
So he's like the DOC of your crew, like the.
That's why I call him Quincy Kamal because he's Quincy Jones.
Oh, so he's putting everything together.
Yeah.
Okay. Got you. Orchestrated.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty nice.
I take the challenge with this, so I don't like really pick beats, none of that. I have said no to no beats.
But
whatever he gives me, I just use it.
But your ear for beats is phenomenal because when that beat came on last week by mistake in my bag, and it came on, you was like, oh, it was a half a second. Right. And you said, yo, that shit's crazy. And when I sent it to you, you heard it.
Right, the beats, we do a song on that.
Yo, we don't do that.
You know, but it's like this exercise to me when I work with DJ Toshi and I do Classic Storm Radio with him. He decides the guests most of the time, unless he can't get one. And he'll decide guests that sometimes they're not like, lyrically, they're not as easy to have conversations with because their rhymes are just battle bars. So like, what am I talking about?
Okay.
Right? And so he gives me the challenge of like going through their work and constructing the interview. So it hones my interviewing skills. What is the worth of this music? What is it? Because he always has good music and good artists. So, but it gives me the challenge. Because the cheat code in doing an interview for me is if they have real deep lyrics, all you gotta do is ask them. Like,
do you slip 120 in there every now and then?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. And all the work, you know what I mean?
Like hidden. Oh, no, I hate when it's blatant.
I say that he's
I don't like doing anything. I don't do anything blatant though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sunez style I call poetical lessons.
Yeah. When Jesus said half short, twice strong, I love writing like that. And I was fortified. Like firstborn Prince used to hate people building for a long time, so he has to, right? You know, used to build with him, and when I used to build, and he would wheel in, and I'd be up there building, and he'd wheel in the back. I'd be like, Terry's mathematics, and I would do as fast as I could. You know what I mean? If I had like a long build, like Terry's mathematics is understanding. You know what I mean? You gotta have the paper things, revelation, purpose, and I'd be, boom, finish it. Because if it went too long, I know he might like think it was whack or something like that. You know?
So could a new listener be able to follow your music?
I would hope so, but I don't think that anybody could get what I'm saying in one listen. I listen to some of my verses though, and I don't get all of it.
Now, because the
I have to go back.
The type of music that you make with your lyrics, a person who has knowledge, who's read a lot of literature, can understand you precisely. You know what I'm saying? When I hear you, I get it. Like
was that a good song, right? You would hope a good hip hop song out. The way I do it is the way I like it. That you would say, wow, that sounds dope, and he said some shit, but good enough where I'm gonna go back. Like to me, people think they know what he's saying. People think they know what he's saying because his theme is gutter. Like, you know, it's Raekwon, it's gonna be about drugs and shit, with a little bit of knowledge and stuff. But when you listen to his lyrics, though, a lot of his layering is real complex.
Very.
You know? So that's what I love about that. Like, you have to go back and you have to but I also love, you know, the way RZA rhymes at his peak.
Yeah, me too.
Because he's saying so many things, like you have to go back and study through that. KRS-One. You know, KRS-One more than any other MC, pop MCs, anybody. If you listen to his catalog, just shuffle all of his catalog. Now, big in KRS, I have all his catalog. There's so many pieces. There's so many hooks to his shit. He throws hooks and gimmicks into almost every other bar, right?
Yeah.
You know, because you're from the Bronx. Everybody from the Bronx studies KRS-One. His music is filled with hooks. Filled with hooks. There's choruses on everything. There's never not a chorus, though. There's never not a gimmicky line inside of it, though. You know, shit that I do, like when I start doing it on every album now, I'll have a song where at the end I go, we still build, we still build. That's from KRS-One. You suckers, fresh for 89. You suckers. Every year he goes, fresh for 1990. You suckers. Like, I was like, let me have something I say every time.
This,
you know?
When you heard my music, what was your take when you heard me?
I didn't take.
Because Sunez always says when the artist asks him, be ready for the
No, I remember he knows how to say it, but I wouldn't. Yo, you know what's crazy? I would not have guessed if I see you every day. By the way you dress, it's P.E.A.C.E. You dressing like me, but the way that you rhyme, I didn't think it was P.E.A.C.E. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking, to me, it was more Queens, more maybe even Medina, because it was very layered though. You know what I'm saying? And you also can't always pick up the cadence though. So like, you know, when you listen to a bar and you know, like, oh, there's the rhyming word coming, and that's how people,
right?
The basic travel.
Right.
You don't always use the. It's like Doom. Doom is a good example. Doom doesn't always rhyme where you're supposed to. He deliberately will extend one and then do another one. You know what I'm saying? And he still keeps the cadence though. You have a lot of songs where you do that.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're doing that consciously or it just comes out like that.
It just comes. I noticed that when I go back and
when you go back and listen to it, you're gonna hear. You see what I'm saying?
I've
Because you do
seen
that
it.
all the time though. And what's dope about that is that that means you have to change the meter. You have to go a little bit faster, go a little slower, which means you have to shove stuff in bars or stretch out bars. You know what I'm saying? Stretch out bars. And it doesn't come out whack. It helps that your voice, you have a dope voice. You know what I'm saying? A whack voice fucks that up. But
sorry, what Guru said is most important. Guru is one of my favorite rappers, man. Like
right. You know, so you know the way you rhyme is like ideal lyricist type style. So I love it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the type of style I like. You know what I'm saying? Like this shit you did with Lex and Kesper. If you listen to it too quick, there's very few rhyme notes there. There's very few rhyme punchlines on that. And some of it turns to conversation and then it goes back into the rhyme. And that's real hard to do. You know what I'm saying?
I've been doing that since I was about 12 years old, like 13 when I moved to Forest. Like my influence was, you know, everybody say this man is a villain, but I grew up watching Fat Joe, you know what I'm saying, and Showbiz. Like those was the dudes, like, you know, like Cologito and Bronx L. I used to be sitting there watching, showing them just like that, mimicking them, just like I was a little boy. You know what I'm saying? DITC showed me that, you know, things can be a reality, and plus Show is not a rapper. So I'm sitting there watching him, you know what I'm saying, do both sides. It gave me, you know, and he has knowledge of himself. So, you know, it let me realize that I had to master duality.
Yeah. It seems like Fat Joe was a big brother that took on that role with a lot of junior rappers.
Yo,
you know
people,
like, because he seems misunderstood, but what happens is that he's kind of like forced in that big brother role where everybody's looking up to him. He's like, dude, I'm all right.
But he has that big autobiography is very revealing though, but I don't know Fat Joe when he went to Miami though. I don't know anybody when they go to Miami except Thurston Howe. But that's the running joke about Miami. But the Fat Joe, when he was here though, he as an MC, not before he started rapping, but when he really was focused on just the MCing, he was very local with the people. So it changed like the mentality and the way he was embraced by the neighborhood and the responsibility that he took in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So like I was coming to the Bronx. Remember when he had 560, the store and shit like that? I was coming there and I would see him. We would say peace to him and shit like that. All that kind of stuff, you know? And one of the songs I did, Thin Line, it wasn't Thin Line. Rally Around the Family on the first album I did. I talk about police brutality and I talk about the story I had with Fat Joe where we was marching against the killing of Anthony Baez. And it was years later, but his mother started another rally because his mother was going to be part of the council. She was running for council.
It's the kid in the choke on the
Bronx.
Right.
With the footballers playing football, right? So his mother was running for council and Tat's crew made like new graffiti, new stuff, and they had a whole thing. and we was marching down there, and I'm way back, and we're walking and everything, and I look up, and I'm like, oh, Fat Joe, and I go, Fat Joe, what are you doing back here? You should be in the front, you know? And he was like, he didn't want to be part of he didn't want to be, take the limelight away from.
Well, you see it in the verses, when they did the verses, Fat Joe's in the crowd.
Right. Yeah.
And so he always kind of
he was there. So I talked about that because we talked for a while we walked that. You know what I'm saying? And in that song, obviously, I'm talking about how I realized that, like, yo, I feel weak. I feel like we're doing this marching, but if the devils want to shoot us, though, they could just shoot us down. You know what I'm saying? I got no real weapons here. You know what I'm saying? So, but that was, you know, something I was remembering. So he was really with the community and everything like that. You know? A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know.
They don't know, like, how it was in the Bronx and shit like that. You know? Like, how could Fat Joe and all be rich and stay in there so long? That was why. You know what I mean?
And then also his mother didn't leave. His mother wanted to stay in the project.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
But a good autobiography, by the way.
Is that the thing? From what I noticed is that the New York City mothers
They
don't want to
leave
leave because they like the convenience of
elevators.
Yeah, they like the convenience of I can go here, there, go back to my place. I mean, versus the Southern mothers, they'll walk them out. You know what I mean? They know. I guess they're conformed. Like they're content where they're at. You know what I mean? So
It's got to be, right?
My mother will not leave. She would not leave Webster Project 40 plus years.
She has her people. She has her people.
Come outside, God. She just would not leave. She want all her kids to. She won't leave.
That's home. That's home. You know what I mean? Home is where the heart is.
Yeah, but you gotta grow. You know,
that's their that's their
thing. Like she's
right.
Grown.
Right.
I'm grown.
Because guess what? She don't have to. There's no children anymore. I don't know the circumstances.
No, there is nothing.
So she had. So she probably went from I don't know how many rooms to now she only got her own room.
There's 3 bedrooms and she only sleep in the living room, dog. I'm like, yo, mom. So when you gonna downsize? When you gonna make? I ain't going to fuck place. That's what she saying. I'm leaving my house.
Both my grandmothers lived in the same project. Puerto Rican grandmother had the 5th floor facing this way, the Atlantic Terminals in Brooklyn, right, in Medina. And then the other one had the one facing Carlton Avenue. I couldn't do nothing. And anytime I was like playing with my friends, I had to go to the store. You know what I mean? Like
out the window, right?
Mio, come here.
Right.
And then she would go and she would order me stuff and she would tell me what to get. Don't get it with your black grandmother. Don't get us mixed. Like it was like I was always going back and forth to the store, but they always like I'm project affiliate because when my parents went out, they just like, hey, go to your grandmother's house. I'd be like, which one? 3rd floor, 5th floor, right? And they would then shuffle us back and forth, right? But it was just one of those.
That's dope, though. That's dope, though. That's dope.
Dope.
Well, it was dope. Christmas, you know what I mean? Like so like around this time, you had a birthday party, right? So the Puerto Ricans come down, crash the party, salsa dance, you know what I mean? And then vice versa, we have a party. Everybody came back and forth, you know what I mean? So you really didn't want to fuck with us in our building. Like we were deep because of
that's
that.
what I'm saying.
Right.
But
at the same time, now flip it.
Support system. Exactly.
Flip it.
Yeah.
It's nothing I couldn't do with his mother, your mother. You know what I mean? I saw Ronnie around the corner acting a fool, and then that was they had their little, you know. So it's
no, it's not dope as a kid, but it's dope as a as a structure.
Right.
The family support. Like as a child, you're like, I can't get away with nothing. Like the same thing with me. Like my mother, she's like, don't go down that block, and I go down that block. I saw you. How you see that? You wasn't even over there. Well, somebody was over there.
They got these spies, right? But my my father's mother, right, Nana, she would. When I started dating high school, when I started dating girls, it's like I'm finally like dating out, and at this point I'm having sex. Right?
So was it a problem with them when you was bringing girls home? Because my mother.
I'm about to build right into that. Right? So my black grandmother would say, Ronnie, 1 and 1 is 3. They look at the girl. 1 and 1 is 3, and they were and I'm like, and I would tell them.
What does that mean? Build on that. What does that mean?
1
You gonna get it pregnant.
and 1 is 3, right? Wow. So it took me 2 days, and she goes, Ronnie, don't do me a favor, sweetheart. Until you figure out what 1 and 1 and 3 is, don't see that girl anymore. And I'm like, I'm about to. It's time. Like it's go time. She coming to the crib. It's go time. Do me a favor. I'll end up walking the girl back to the bus stop. We went did something else, right? And she goes, until you figure out what it took me 2 days to figure out what 1 and 1 and 3 is, right? Real slow. So I tell you, so then I'm like, 1 and 1 is 3. I had that, everybody kept saying, Ron, you can't do math. 1 and 1 is 3, right? And then the other mothers was like, 1 and 1 is 3. And my father goes, she used to do that shit to us too, son. Don't even worry about it. But they were saying, like, yo, listen, be careful of the woman that you pick. You know what I mean? So they had a slick way of saying, I don't like that girl. You know what I mean? Like just looking at her, looking at you, the fact that the girl's following, she's like, the fact that she's following you, right? Right. So because remember, they feed us, they nurture us, they know us. So when she would say 1 and 1 is 3, right? And then I'm bringing her upstairs to my Puerto Rican grandmother, and my Puerto Rican grandmother's like, why is she here? Right? And I'm like, oh shit, so now I ain't got no place to bring the girl, right? Because I'm thinking we're gonna hang out with you. So now I gotta leave, and I would come back, walk into the bus stop, whatever, take her home. Come back, yo, grandma's, what's up? And they go, little son, you really don't understand they would say stuff like, they never gave it to me. They say, look at your uncles. Look at the shit your uncles are going through. Look at things so-and-so's going through. Look at the stuff your mom's going through. 1 and 1 is 3. And I'm like, don't get it, grandma, right? And then she was like, yo, listen, they pretty much saying you're not making good decisions, right? And then they about 1 and 1, the understanding. And we ain't got them principles in there, that baby is gonna falter. So they used to throw them at me, you know, because it was just a different level of understanding. That it was just very slick. 1 and 1 is 3, son. Here you got knowledge, wisdom, and understanding it. But they didn't have that. I grew with more biblical principles. Both my grandmothers, they was like, yo, I'm into my Jesus, but they would read the lessons, and then they would kind of like my one grandmother, she would take the lessons and then do sermons with the lessons. And then she would do, so she likes, and she uses Jesus' parable of the sower of the seed, right? And then she would say, baby, read that. And I was like, okay, I would see it. And then he was like, as you sow the seeds, the birds or fowl of the earth will come and swoop up the seeds. And then the second, when you sow the seeds, that some will get choked up by the roots, by the weeds, they'll get choked out. And then the others, when they look like they have foundation, when the sun comes out, they get burnt. And then there's the ones that grow fruit. And I go, shit, that's probability. That's 1 out of 4, grandma. She goes, yeah, good luck, sweetie. You go out there doing God's work. The probability is not in your favor. Oh shit, did she just drop a jewel on us and walk? And then she would leave. She just walk out. take that to them 5%. Then she would walk out, right? I was like, grandma. And then we would look at it like, yo, she just took that understanding of that lesson, gave it to us, and said, yo, everybody you teach is not gonna get it. They're not gonna get it just because they're not ready, their time ain't there. And she would take that to the box, and then she would walk off, right? Because she was she didn't understand why they didn't take to it. And then all of a sudden they went from these nice names that she picked to all these righteous
new names,
right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not calling you. And then I used to love when she called my father his girl, and everybody knew it was the God. And then she would say his name, and I was like, grandma's this, right? And he would answer to it. He's like, yo, that's just who she gonna be. You know what I mean? But everybody else, this is name, right? So, but to mom, my grandmothers didn't compromise. You know what I mean? But they liked the overall, the structure that we started coming in with. You know what I mean? Now you look at your physique, like soon as now you're looking in the mirror, now you're looking at your physique. Now you have to, there's the lesson caps, and then there's your schoolwork cap, right? Then it was like, what's the capital of this state? What is the capital? They had geography. They had their own versions of their school stuff they would ask you. And then you started seeing, okay, all right, this is more of a mental training thing. This is more of just how she learned that parable. It's the same way we would learn 120, right? I go, oh, it's a mental exercise. And she goes, yeah, you should be able to drop it like that. And she would school us in it. And it's funny how I always maintain that, because it was profound how she did it. And you could tell it's opposite of that. And she would just walk off, right? Because how do you challenge that? You know what I mean? Because how many students have you ever had that someone didn't take to it? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And then how many, because of time, they weren't ready. And then they just, all those guys or whatever. And then when you do get the ones, then they produce fruit, and then you move on. So mathematically, equation, like you're going to fail more than you.
Right. It reminds me of something like, especially the 5%, we teach in a way where we teach for two different times. Peace to God. We teach for 2 different times a lot of times. We teach for the moment right now, the things that you need now. But the longer that you build with an older God, I guess in this case it's gonna be me now. there's gonna be things that we say.
You're there, Sunez.
the more that we build, the more that we're saying things for you to hold for much later. You know, we talk about Firstborn Prince. He would say a lot of things that I would just like jot down. He used to make fun of me, make jokes about me writing down everything. Because before that was when there was no phone and shit like that. So I would have notepads. We're reporters, we're journalists. We have notepads writing everything. And I would write down everything, but I didn't really understand a lot of the stuff he said. And there was one time, I don't remember what it was, but I was going back to Sunset Park because when I got knowledge, I was still living in Sunset Park. And I'll be on the D train going back, and I'll be like, oh man, that's what he was saying. I sound like a crazy man in the train. And I was like, oh, that was what God was building on. And it would hit you later, these things. You know what I'm saying? These things.
It comes to time.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah. So it would be like that with a lot of things. You know what I'm saying?
They have foresight.
A lot of things that God's taught me, and this is why they teach us young. I was already inside that mistake because I was older, and I learned the lesson, but it only became useful for me to be able to teach it as another victim of it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the way that we're taught, there's so many levels that get taught. So when you teach in a classroom setting that has a long class session like this, there's things that I'll say that's for a longer period of time, things that I say for a more immediate time. You know what I mean? This is why everybody got to copy notes. You know what I mean? And people don't. They don't write notes. You know? They're not note takers. But if you take those mental notes, though, even though we can cheat now and everything is noted here, everything's recorded. You know what I mean? That wasn't the way it always was. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of, I know that I'm very behind on emails. I didn't even catch up to the last week. That's why I didn't email you back, God. You know what I mean? Or you, God. I never got up to last week's emails. That's how many emails I'm back behind. You know
I know you get hundreds a day, probably. Like
it's what to sift through too, but also sifting through emails that have nothing to do with nothing. And just bad music. I get a lot of bad music.
Oh shit!
I do, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever, because I know you do your Renaissance and you write on all the great music and all the great artists that's not spoken. Have you ever done something on the whack artists who just irk your fucking nerves when you hear that shit?
Honestly, there's a lot of bad music now, but I never hear it enough for it to bother me.
Don't give it the time.
Yeah, and more in my life now, I guess it's more Zen, right? Like more of a Zen moment. I spend so much time with great music. You know what I mean? So like, so many genres, so many things. Like, honestly, I spent the whole week in the catalog of Linda Ronstadt.
Really?
Wow.
And it's
really?
You know how
because
close came up on my Instagram today? It's weird you walked out of Linda Ronstadt.
The reason is because I've been finding people that have done diverse things. And so me as a journalist of music that makes music, I studied all the people that took that path though, like a Ted Jiwa that has written and continues to write great works on jazz history. Aurora Flores, the Boricua that wrote about so many classic songs and records and artists. And she became a singer later on in life. She sings beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And so but it took a long time because she's interviewing legends and shit like that. So I took all these notes. Amiri Baraka, of course, you know what I mean? Who's really the benchmark for me. But I started studying Linda Ronstadt because I'm just trying to hear different songwriters. And I went back to the catalog that I had hers and was beefing it up too. And Linda Ronstadt actually could sing at higher octaves than country could utilize. You know what I'm saying? She could really sing everything. And she did opera. She did bolero albums, which are incredible.
Yep. And she doesn't speak Spanish.
Yeah, because her name is German, but her father is German, but via Mexico. So her great grandfather's German via Mexico, then married a Mexican woman there. So she has the Mexican blood in her, but that's how she has the Ronstadt name. But they grew up with all different types of music though. Her mother, who's white, was listening to jazz, Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, all this stuff. So all these different music. So in her catalog, she did albums, the Bolero albums. But I studied her, and she didn't sing Spanish great, even though she sang it growing up. She didn't sing it properly. So like a Mexican bolero, Mexican ranchero music versus a Cuban bolero, or versus the way Mexicans sing it. There's different ways to sing it. There's different styles of singing. There's different cadences and emphasis. And she had to learn all that. And like, I didn't know that Ruben Blades taught her, like the legendary lyricist Sonero. So there were all these things I was learning about her, but just this willingness and ease to go into all these different things. I've been studying people that have succeeded with that. Because I was listening to her, and my father was like, you know what, Gina, I always thought she'd be bigger than she was and everything. I was like, she was. It's just that when she wasn't making pop records like, you know, Aaron Neville, right? That song is a classic ballad, right? She was doing the bolero. She did 3 albums, as an example, 3 jazz albums with Nelson Riddle composing. Nelson Riddle, the guy that did most of the composing for Frank Sinatra. So she was in all these different things and doing them properly. You know, she had the improvisation in the jazz.
She got sick.
Yeah, but later now
she
has Parkinson's, so she can't sing anymore. But she did all of that. So I was like, yo, this is dope. Like she did everything. When she started, she was doing folk music. She was out there with the hippies, so they were doing a lot of, you know, a lot of that shit. Like her first group, I forgot the group she was in first. They was doing more of a hippie type style, you know, hippie rock, shit like that. Then she did the country, like, so most of her music is country, but
she had respect of her peers though, like the contemporaries of that time.
Well, you know, to put that to thing, one of the classic albums she's known for is the Trio album, and that's with her, Emmylou Harris, and Dolly Parton, and that's considered a classic. So can't get bigger than that. You're doing a record.
You never really heard about Dolly Parton with drugs.
No.
Not Dolly Parton. I'm sorry, Linda Ronstadt.
No.
That whole crew, they never really heard with them like that.
I did learn I saw the Max documentary. I did learn that they did dabble with it though, but they hit a stump with that, and they got off of it. They realized it wasn't helping them, and they got off of it. So they got lucky with that. You know, which is there's a you know, people don't talk about the stories of a lot of musicians that really do get off the drugs and build. Just like in our nation, they always say, "Oh, the gods, they be doing drugs." Tell me about the gods that stopped and did incredible things. You know what I'm saying? They don't really talk about that. Like, for example, you was talking about Fakim, right?
Yes.
Fakim was like a lot of the gods. They did a lot of drugs. They went through their hard times and everything. But at the end of his life, right? And I know Inf knows, right? You know him very well. You document a lot of it, though. He was at a very scholarly peak.
Yes.
He was very focused on what he was building on, his ideas, his thesis statements. Like, and honestly, he would be in my classroom taking real notes.
Really?
Like real notes. He would open a book pad and take real notes. He would add on, but a lot of times he would be quiet though and be asking me, well, what books are you dealing with now? What books are you doing? Yeah, he would do about that. You know?
Yeah, I've been watching the golf for years.
So he was, he's hit a real studious peak at the end of his life.
That conversation came up with, there's a new rapper, they call him Legendary Baller, right? And then he's kind of like Humpty, right? Like he has an alternate personality. You're the old guy that's like he's
the older dude.
Yeah, so I
say, man, don't he sound like Fakim? Which would be more Fakim's like on the left side.
Y'all bugging me out.
Yeah, so I see that.
Not the scholarly side.
And I'm like, yo, this dude is, I mean, it's very artful, right? It's very put together, and he's killing it, right? But the gimmick is almost like, you know how Humpty put on the nose. You know, like you tell the guy who grew up that maybe.
But he's really an elder though.
He's got to be in his 40s. He's got to be in his 40s. You know what I mean?
Just the way the 60s.
No. The persona is the 60s. Okay. It's an act. It's a toupee.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's an act.
Really?
It's an act. You know about Legendary Baller, right? That nigga don't rock with stuff like that. It might he give me beat down. I used to like Hammer and stuff back in the days.
Shame on you.
Why y'all be missing Hammer?
I guess I should admit that I was an MC Hammer fan.
Why y'all missing Hammer?
Hold on, y'all. MC Hammer's first album was hardcore. I don't know what y'all talking about, man.
Why
His first album was street.
So man, I see his face like,
Look at his face right now. He's sick with me.
I don't got no hip hop credibility, right? But just the fact is, you know, I was like, why they just say him?
Yo, I used to be the same way.
But I'll take MC Hammer. I already like him, but I take him more now than I would ever take what they listening to right now.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Because he had performance, he had lyrics, he had, you know what I mean? He still got it. But I would take that because it has showmanship.
Here's why I throw all that out though. What you said. Let me be an asshole.
Do it.
When all these pop rappers rap back then, they wouldn't have succeeded though if they threw out the entire format.
Okay.
So they couldn't go pop if they threw away the entire format of the genre just yet.
So you're saying they still had to be street?
Right? No. The format of the genre. It had to rhyme. Think Vanilla Ice. It still has to rhyme. It still has to do this.
I get it.
They can't throw away and abuse the entire format though. So even commercializing of a genre, takes time. You know what I'm saying? It takes time to destroy a genre too. You know what I mean? If you look at other genres, it happens even slower. So, when you get like a jazz artist that do no improvising, Kenny G-ish shit, right? You just hear a Kenny G song, it might sound nice though. That's not why they're dissing them. It's because there's zero improvisation. It's reinterpretations.
Okay, so
you know
I remember a lot of jazz issues.
So what I'm saying is that like back then, if you go in pop though, you can't just totally, let's say, do what they do now and just garble your lyrics.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It has to actually rhyme because then it won't be palatable to that genre. So you can't even dilute it that much. So you can only dilute it in little bits though, That giant leap really happens to me in the 2000s though. It really happens in the 2000s though.
Because I like Public Enemy, but then I like Hammer, and my dudes was like, Ronnie, just let me take.
He's the guy at the beginning of the De La Soul's Dead album, getting beat up. Man.
Like Ronnie, let me get
I
the
was
station.
actually a kid with the hammer tape in my cassette.
He can dance, man. He can
First
dance.
His first album was hard, man. His first album before he went pop, he was hard.
Right, yeah.
He was hard.
But you know what?
But why do you think in Ice Cube's true to the game though? You was hardcore hip hop, but look at yourself, boy. You don't flip flop. Remember?
Oh, he was talking to Hammer, right? Because Hammer was straight.
Sorry, guys, I still like it.
I mean, I turned his mother out. That was cool.
Shit was dope.
That was dumb, but
remember, we ate. Well, me anyway. I'm like 8, 9, 10. Right. I'm a young kid, so even like Eric B and Rakim, it's more like dance music. I'm not looking at the technicalities and I'm not listening. I'm like, oh, that dude's hot. I'm a youngin', right? I'm just about to cross the street by myself. So it was a little safer.
Listening to hip hop, I started it much later. Man. I was telling you, I started really listening in high school. So I didn't really listen at all before. So when Hammer came out though, at Pop was when I first heard of him. So all of these things embarrassed me because I was trying to show my parents and everybody else that this hip hop thing I'm listening to is actually profound. And then here comes this bozo with a clown outfit doing silly ass dances.
It's the difference between like the feeling and the education of it. Because
at a young age though, I always hated the coonery of music and arts.
So you didn't like Kane? Kane?
I didn't like Kane for the dancing. I didn't like any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he gave a feeling.
The epitome of the imagery that was hip hop to me, the oldest imagery in my head was Rakim and I Ain't No Joke video.
But Flav dancing in the background.
Not Flav, damn it! Yeah. Not Flav, Rakim. Rakim just standing there.
Yeah, that was it. But the
That's
Flav
it.
was
Him
like,
just standing there.
Spit. You know what I mean?
Right. But the more stupid Flav got in the video, the more
it took away from it.
The more that what Rakim doing was the way you do it, because I loved hip hop before that because of the b-boy and the toughness that we exuded.
Right.
So when you finish your shit, you stay.
Well, Flav gave a little flavor.
Right.
Flav gave it.
It was just flavor.
And they from the same neighborhood.
I ignored all
that shit was dope.
No, I didn't say it wasn't dope.
Oh, okay.
But when I was a kid, it had to be the tough stuff, nothing. That's why then just a few years later, I start really studying, and when Cypress Hill's Black Sunday comes out,
That's pretty good.
that's before
Oh my
36 Chambers and everything. I said that was the most hardest shit I ever
I
heard,
swear to God,
musically and lyrically. Like the unity. There was other guys that were more lyrically hard, right? You had Ice-T and shit like that, right? Which I loved. But musically, I never heard anything that violently hard. I wanted everything to be like that. That was the epitome.
It kind of felt like
You know?
a lot of stuff was how Run DMC added a little bit of rock to it.
Right.
Like they kind of took a little bit of that recipe with that album.
I hated the rock Aerosmith song too.
No, you hated what about King of Rock?
I hated all their rock versions because at home that was pop rock. To me, it was pop rock, and that's what they're listening to. That's what my older sister might listen to. That's not the tough stuff. That's not it. You know what I mean? It was corny.
But I felt like it was.
I'm saying my
limited
limited perceptions as a kid. Though.
The limited perceptions.
Very limited perception,
Okay.
but I was always very anti-pop though. Very anti-pop.
I can't say I was like anti-pop because I grew up with hearing those pop songs.
You know what? Everything was
Michael
pop.
Jackson,
No.
everything.
But
the
I-
80s and the
Listen,
80s,
in
everything's
the
pop.
80s, it's a contradiction because in the 80s we was loving Michael Jackson, though,
Right.
but we was
Right.
dissing Michael Jackson every time girls liked him. You know what I mean? We was little kids, and we didn't, you know. So it was always those things. He was so dope, but then it's like you know, but he don't do it tough, and we'd always find excuses and stuff. You see people like Rakim, it's like, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
How do you really separate?
I'm saying in my mind, these are the contradictions.
No, but I'm asking you
in my
now,
mind.
like in this day, like how do you separate pop from the actual art?
Oh, it's very easy now. Music that comes out now, most of it is terrible. There's no redeeming quality.
No, but pop is like popular, and you want to be popular to actually. This is where we.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing.
I know.
discussion.
I know. Their son keeps saying that if they blow up, I hate them after they blow up. You know what I'm saying? But that's
your thing.
That's not true.
That's not true. Is it?
No.
Okay, so what artist has blown
I
up?
want everybody to blow up. It's just that I
So you
don't.
can hate them.
I don't focus. I don't focus on that anymore. I'm Michael Landon. I'm Michael Landon in Highway to Heaven though. If I write about you and you blow up though, that's it. My deed is done, and now we can travel on and keep it moving. Michael Landon, remember at the end?
Yeah, because he was the angel, right?
Highway to Heaven though, we on that. Yeah, we just keep it moving. You know what I mean? I did my shit.
He did Little House on the Prairie too, right?
Yeah.
That was the dude. He died. He died.
But I used to see that was about the mystery God. But these things influenced you because it was about somebody that would go around helping.
Right.
That's what we do with 5%. That's what we do. We do things like that. You know what I'm saying? So these things resonated with me. You know? And my old Earth liked the program. I was like, what is the qualities that she likes about that? You know what I mean?
What was his partner's name? The one that wore the baseball cap. We were
man,
talking about with the great beard.
Yeah.
Like this dude was like, nah, we ain't doing that, Mike. You know what I mean? Like he was always against everything, and then he always got one.
Because he was human though.
Yeah, he's like sit
Right, yeah.
what's going on, right?
He's
Like,
human though. He'd get bodied though. It's like
when you were watching, like
you an angel though. You're not gonna get bodied, but he
dude, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And then remember, he's like, they're gonna remember me. They're not gonna remember you, bro. It's like the with Men in Black when they do the light.
Right.
They don't remember him. They remember the human guy.
Yeah.
Those things. It's funny that the things that we looked at growing up that nurtured us.
Right.
Like you see what you like, what you
But
don't like.
you know what though? Like one of the problems though is that we don't have those guidelines. Like we're not willing to say this is okay with me, but it's breached the line still. Like I think it's okay, but it's still breaching the line. We're not willing to admit that contradiction. And so we end up saying we like.
That's what I'm saying. It's about the contradiction. Because we look at Wu-Tang, right? We all grew up watching kung fu movies, right? Now, then here comes Wu-Tang, and they put it in their music that way. Now it becomes a gimmick, right? And when I talk to my brother Dog Kim, that's a fucking gimmick, and I'm like, well, that's the essence of it.
Right.
He hates that. Whereas I loved it because that's what I.
For me, I look at it differently because RZA has always been my favorite. It wasn't a gimmick the minute that RZA, because of what RZA did, You know, he
Actually
actually
went
went
into
and
the culture.
learned
He
it.
went
He
in the
actually
culture.
went and learned it.
RZA, but not,
He
but
partook in it.
then
But
again,
because RZA made that gimmick to me,
he made the gimmick.
so he honored it as well. You know what I'm saying? And you know,
Okay, honor.
I also
okay.
learned when it comes to that though, like the Chinese kung fu and the appropriation of it. I think about those things because when we learned kung fu, if you saw me in the 2000s, you would see me wearing gis and never jeans. I'd be wearing some kind of workout pants or something. You know what I'm saying? I didn't wear anything. I wore either a suit or I wore kung fu clothing. Like we literally wore gis. Like
See, guys, I said, bro, dog can be like that's an appropriation.
Right.
Chinese appropriation of
but
black culture.
it's like the suit. There's a Sufi. I forget which Sufi says this, but they say to be a great Sufi, you wear the robes of the Sufi. When you reach that level of actually being the Sufi, you let go of the robes. You know, and like we were trying to learn this kung fu, so we embraced the whole culture. We was drinking tea, God, and we had the whole tea sets like in the movie, you know. Yeah, everything. No, like,
She ain't got no
actually, infinite mind, we would be with that. I had the long hair. I had long hair down here. I was layman. I was dressed like a layman monk. You know what I'm saying? And we would have the teas, and we were like,
mimic everything.
well, now, you know what I mean? And then we would do shit, you know what I mean? Like we'd have the whole thing. And listen, when we was walking through Harlem, we'd walk with our weapons out. Just like they would walk, like when, you know, they always walk to the
on the
fight.
sides and
Yeah, we would walk with the different spears. You can't put a spear in a book bag. You gotta walk. You gotta walk with the spear. You know, you can't put a 6-inch pole in the book bag. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we walk with all that. You know?
Wow.
And we took on that nature, but when we started to understand it more, you know, we got to that point where like it was okay that we didn't have to wear it all the time. In fact, the more that we learned martial arts, the more we wanted to let people know. We didn't want everybody to know that we did it. But we were young though, so we took it a challenge. We took the challenge though, you know. So there were lots of times we'd be at Mount Morris Park, up there, that whole staircase is up to go up there, and people would come up though and challenge, you know. And yeah, there were times, and I remember times like where Knowledge Eternal and King He, because they were like our best. They're our best, and then they would take their best and then, you know,
have a contest.
Yeah,
yeah, because that was the whole contest. You know what I mean? Because now you have to display.
Right.
One is like the display of the art, and then it's the actual combat.
And then and Bobby would see like what level the students or the person that were challenging or wanted to learn with at, and then he would have one of us. So sometimes he'd have me go against that person. You know what I'm saying?
I like
that shit is not cool though. That shit is pretty scary though. Like, you're like, damn, I gotta fight like right now.
Right now, after you've been working out and
you don't know if your shit is good. Like you're learning, so you're like, you got told like for the last 3 hours that your shit is wrong, and now you gotta go. You know. But that's how we learn though. Like we really learn in the fire like that. You know what I'm saying?
In the fire.
Yeah, in the fire.
In the fire.
Throwing in the fire. You know, everything. You know.
Different times.
When you learn knowledge yourself here, the way this school really was, when it was really filled up, like where people would come here, right? You couldn't come here if you didn't have an understanding of the day's mathematics, at least.
Right.
You had to be ready to build, you know? And then when I got knowledge and stuff, I lived with 5%ers around, so I couldn't even leave my door. My king used to live downstairs for me. You know, and Dayson used to always call him the Inspector Dick. Because he was always, my king used to do that. He just, you didn't know if he thought your bill was right and exact, because he used to go, I thought everything was wrong, I would tell him. You know what I mean?
I came from Seattle.
Yeah, White King, yeah. You know?
Young grasshopper.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know who's getting like that? Doc Kim was getting like that now. He's getting seasoned now, right? So, because Doc Kim was like, I like to do it how he understands. He gives you a little bit, and then he'll go with a big bill, and then he'll go back to a little bit. I like how Doc Kim put his on.
When I got knowledge itself, Dark Kim, Allah Saquon, Freedom, right? Dominican Freedom, Understand See Freedom. They was all the gods that were like my older peers that I would go with. You know, like when they had Bronx Telnet. When Freedom had Bronx Telnet, I'd be up there, and I would just be around, listening, doing the knowledge and shit like that. And none of it would be about fucking hip hop. You know what I mean? None of it.
Yeah, because I see. Yeah, Doc, and you don't like this hip hop thing. Like everybody comes to the school and wants to be hip hop artists, or everybody thinks that
It happens a lot.
This is a rap
And
group.
what's funny is that when sometimes they come to me because they know
The affiliation.
that what I do in hip hop, they don't always know how long Dark Kim has been doing hip hop. So, you know,
No, because he's not gonna promote it like that. That's
tell
not the way
you,
that's not the way he gives it up. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? He's more a purist of this culture, and you come with that, like, you came to a law school, or you come to this culture because you like hip hop, or you heard something in hip hop. To him, he's like, all right, well, you're useless. You're useless.
I told you why I came to school, because the colored man kept telling me I'm God. You know what I'm saying?
The colored man kept telling you God.
I kept hearing that he was saying, you God. I kept seeing situations kept telling me that I'm God. You know what I'm saying? And I knew that already, but not in this proper context. You know what I'm saying? So I needed to come somewhere where I was going to get it proper. And the universe brought me to Sunez. You know what I'm saying?
You brought yourself to me.
That's what you always say.
Sunez hit you with the gut punch.
Yeah. We say that to like the universe because it sounds like similar to the mystery God. Like,
Now, when I say the universe, I say because I talk to myself a lot. You know what I'm saying? And like do meditation and shit like that. And when
It's still you and only you.
right.
You either ask a question that you answer yourself, or you ask a question that draws you.
Okay, so it's me. It's not. You know what I'm saying? Because when I
Yeah,
talk to myself a lot.
because listen, people trade the mystery God or the idea of like Jesus for the universe. The universe will lead me this, or the universe brought me this. It's like it's the same thing that you saying Jesus brought you this.
Nah,
it's really at the end of the day,
And it's
you.
a very poor, not you. I'm just
Okay.
saying that saying when people use it, it's a very poor build on karma. Because karma's that whole thing where like what you put out, you get back. That's not what karma is, and that's not where it comes from. So people that say all that karma shit, they're talking about stuff that they don't know about, because the Eastern traditions don't talk about karma that way. Karma is all of the bullshit history of your past. And that includes what you were born into, the family you were born into. That's part of your karma. Because whatever they did, you still have to rise above it or deal with the greatness that they bestowed on you. Either way, you know what I'm saying? We grow up poor on welfare. Well, that's the karma that I'm dealing with, though. It's not like while I was in the womb, I was making bad decisions and they said, oh, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, or it just didn't work out. No, that's the history, the legacy that you're born into.
Right.
So it's more of a build in the Eastern traditions of the connective realities we have in the mind through all ancestors prior, that there's a connection to all this building. And you either, like the human body, whatever bad you did to it though, you have to overcome that. Whatever genetics you have that's flawed, right? Diseases and things like that, you could eat healthy, but now, unlike another healthy eater, for certain diseases that your family has, you might have to eat better or even do extra to overcome that maybe another person doesn't have to. That's what that means.
Okay, so let me ask you something. So when you say I brought myself here, you also...
Because a question has energy. It either takes you to answer or provokes other things, subconsciously or consciously, to you to ask questions or deal with questions in a certain way. So that there's no mystery. A lot of times when I used to start writing, years ago, I'd have columns and stuff. I said, I don't have to worry. It's going to come to me. It's not going to come to me like a mystery God. It's just that there's going to be certain observations that I just have to accumulate certain observations over time. So that way I feel comfortable and seasoned enough that I am distant enough from that previous creation to make this one.
So understand it's going to come in time.
Right. So it has nothing to do with me saying it's just going to come to me and click. Just like when I was talking in the last session about getting into the zone and things like that. It's all the same thing. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. It's just that there's a lot of Western versions of a lot of Eastern concepts. And they get new karma.
Watered down, basically.
Right. Karma is definitely one of them.
But when you say it comes in its own, understand it comes in its own time. A lot of times, the individual is restless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the older guys
time,
like, slow down. You gotta coach them a little. They're restless.
Yeah,
They're
so
like,
the time that the understanding comes in is poorly dealt with and it's frenetically used. So you still have to use that time to get understanding.
Right.
But it can't be frenetically used. Obsessive compulsive. You know what I'm saying?
Frenetic,
just like when you
explain
get
that word, frenetic.
Right? Frenetic means chaotic, like all crazy.
Okay.
You
has
can't
to be in order.
You have to be targeted and focused. And the only way to do that though is to have a certain level of calm and comfort that it's going to happen. Like for example, it links with the zone, right? Because the understanding is like being in that zone, right? You have to calm down. When you see players in the zone, they're never acting crazy. Everything's calm, right? Jordan, game 6, right? The last dance. He wasn't like, I gotta steal the ball from Malone. You know, like he wasn't all crazy. He was plotting. Boom, stripped it, clean. Yeah. That's when most players, right? If we were in this situation, because we ain't no ball players like that,
right.
We'd be like, we're gonna lose the game. It's
they
like
tense up.
It's not enough time. It's not enough time. Then we get the ball, we'll throw it from like mid-court. We don't, right? But he's calm, collected. Bam. You know, he just everything was in the zone. I know what I have to do, and if I could do it, just wait for the proper time. All the things that I saw are gonna come into play. You know what I mean? So if you have the ability to let all of that come into play the right way, the timing, everything, like the jokes, the timing, then everything comes proper. And then the understanding is what's going to be the result of that. It's the same thing with your thoughts and your questions. They come the same way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They come with the focus and the fury that you bring into it. But the fury needs a focus. You know what I'm saying?
The fury needs the
power needs the refinement. The power always has focus.
Gotcha.
It's not
the power needs the refinement.
The power needs because for me, I always build that refinement is focus. It is focus. The Father never yelled in the street, "The black man is God. Come hither here. Come hither here." I am teaching the great knowledge.
Right.
Right. It would have worked though. This was the '60s though and shit.
Did that work?
You had Meher Baba and he was teaching shit and all these Indian yogis, everything was teaching. They were saying all types of stuff, right? Black power shit. He could have been the same thing, but he targeted individuals. He focused. You know, I think that one. You know, in fact, it was very Chinese. You know, a very Asian way of doing it. You don't show your kung fu, but you teach your kung fu.
It's very army.
You know what I'm saying?
It's very army because
he was in the army.
It's very so. In the army, what they teach you is that a lot of times it's you show them what right looks like.
Right.
I don't have to say it. You're gonna see the wisdom. I'm gonna move a certain way. I don't have to be loud. It's gonna be said. So like when he talked about fighting, when you fight, if you're tense, you're gonna lose. So the head has to be balanced, the shoulders, the hips, and you go in there. The minute that you get tense, that's when you get knocked out. So you have to keep that balance of okay, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what he's giving me. All right, am I gonna throw in a hole? Am I gonna strike? Right. So you have to maintain that balance. But the understanding part comes with when you're being coached.
Right.
And your coach, you know, when they come to the side, hey, Bob, yo, listen, he's tearing you up with that jab. You got to weave a little bit. We're going to head block. They're seeing something that you don't see. So a lot of times, here's where when If was talking about, right? The young guys and the old guys. The older guys are now the coaches now. You in the arena. We just saying, yo, listen, watch out for that jab. When he throw the jab, hook it. Boom, hit the counter, right? Because we've been there. So now it's that dual relationship because now they respect the individual because the individual's been there, done that, and they want that. That's the partnership. That's when the old guys and the young guys come together.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because now it's like, all right, so what worked for you in your marriage? What worked for you with your kids? And in my time, we did this.
Yo, that's mad deep because there's a thing. I forget the term. I gotta find it. But in martial arts, there's a concept, and we learned it. But I learned the term in a Japanese martial arts book. I forgot the term, what it's called. But there's a term for like when you're doing the martial arts, so and what you think you look like doing it is exactly the way you do it. Cause you know, like in other words, you know, you do some shit, you're like, oh, I was dope. Then you see a video and you're like, that was whack. Yeah. That shit look trash.
So, and that's,
you know what I mean?
That's the crazy thing about understanding.
Right. So there's a martial arts skill of like, are you able to move exactly how you think you move?
And that's hard.
And then when you move, do you know exactly how you actually really are moving? And that's really, really hard. That's really hard. That's a lot of the skill is in that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of skill, and it works with all things. That's why martial arts is so powerful on the mind too, because a lot of times, let's say people build, and they think that they're building in a way that people understand, and it's not coming across like that. Other people are watching like, man, he's just yelling everything. He's not asking what they understanding. He's saying things that they're not even up to. He didn't even ask what their lessons are. Like, he's skipping all these things. But in their mind, they're like, yo, I'm the true living God. I'm building hard in here. I'm just tearing this up here. I'm showing this youth what's going on. And it's not really working like that. So there's like a self-awareness of the body, though. You know what I mean? That's really like, people will see me share clips of my kung fu.
Right.
Of course, I'm sharing shit that looks pretty.
Of course. Why? I'm not showing you the bad punches.
Not the shit that I, you know what I mean? Or the punch where I punch and I was like, God damn, this dummy hurt. You know what I mean? But like, most of that was because I was trying to see, like, am I moving the way I really want to, and the way that I think that I'm moving?
And that's interesting because I see as you do your moves, I see make the move and you like, nah. Then you do it again.
Right, yeah.
I can see your conscious of your
people
movement.
see, like, they'll see clips, but a lot of time I'm spending like 5 whole minutes doing this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just making it so.
And then action. You know what I mean? Like, it's the rehearsal, right? And then,
yeah. And it's like that repetitive nature. That's
dangerous.
And that's the part that,
right,
like, I saw something the other day, right? And some of the older guys, I don't know, I think it was a rally in somewhere else, right? And those guys talking about secondary wisdom and second. And I was like, listen, we would have walked away from that long. Like, I'm gonna just go ahead and, you know what I mean? Because they were arguing and saying the same things, but it's the same thing with your understanding.
That was the God original self recorded that, right?
Yeah, I recorded that.
Oh, you recorded that? Yeah.
But just seeing that, what happens that
I didn't see the end of that though.
He did record it. No, but I put up the extended version of it.
Oh, okay. I gotta see that. Because I didn't see the answer in his clip, and I was like, damn, I ain't seen how he showed proof that.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, there were different understandings of secondary, or because I mean, the way I'm taught, like knowledge is first,
right,
and wisdom is second.
But wisdom is secondary. It's literally.
And it's literally said like that's what I said. You would have been like this. I'm leaving now.
Yeah, but no, my wisdom is supreme.
For me, I didn't hear the whole bill, but for me, the whole thing is really about the pedagogical technique with women. You don't tell people that what their worth is secondary, no matter what.
Yeah, no, but see, we're not, and that's another sub part of the discussion because wisdom is not the woman. We're not saying that.
Right.
But the principle of wisdom comes at, it can't be wise without knowledge.
Because now what happens that you're recording actual someone's understanding and flaws. So up here, I may have an idea that you think is like, this is amazing. And I say it comes out as soon as it's like, go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No.
Listen, I got a call yesterday from Dark Kim. He said, y'all motherfuckers don't know what fucking mathematics is.
No. Because guess what? They all, to me, when they, as I got older,
what the fuck?
As I got older, right, Supreme Mathematics, to me, it was like integrated mathematics because you need one they all go together. You take one away, it falls apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you take one, it falls apart.
Right.
So you can't skip the second step because what happens is that the wisdom part is that, remember, here's the old school rule, right? What freezes 32 degrees, right? As I'm speaking, you're frozen. No one was frozen.
But that's
they wasn't understanding his wisdom. That's
where the most necessary part comes in.
And that's what you have to
most necessary. Now you get into the definition because there is a definition of secondary when you add suffix "ary" to it. Then it makes it less than, right? But that's not how it's manifested here. It's like, because when you say secondary but most necessary, then it's almost like a oxy, like.
So if you take the but away and you put the and, you see what I mean? It just the wording. So you have the wordsmith here, right? So, but you don't want one weapon.
Right.
You want multiple weapons because everything is not going to work.
But really, the fight in that is because of the woman. No matter what, the issue with that term is because that was always told to women. You're secondary, but not necessary, because people couldn't really show the woman their place was of a magnificent value. You know what I'm saying?
Until you see, right? Until you see, like how we say, the mother is the first teacher of the child, right? And they kind of help us develop our understanding because they get to see what I like, what our interests are. They get to see us, and then they'll kind of like nurture us in those realms.
Yeah.
My mother gave me a jump rope one day, right, for a gift. And I was like, what the hell is this, right? And she has, son, you have no coordination. My mother put me in ballet and gave me a jump rope, right? She says, no, like, you want to play football, you can't juke nobody, you short. She gave me a jump rope.
You like Herschel Walker.
Now I got a little bit of game, right? But in the beginning, she's like, you need this, right? And I'm like, a jump, I'm not a girl, right? But what do you see most of the boxes?
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you, Mom. You know what I mean? Because she had an understanding I didn't have, right? And my father was like, he's like martial arts and boxing and stuff like that. And he saw the jump rope. He tried to take that shit, right? He was like, oh, this is nice jump rope because it was like leather. And I didn't appreciate it. It was a real jump rope. It wasn't no girl jump rope. And she's like, this is me, this is for you. And I'm like, Mom, I ain't no jump rope. You know what I mean? But she was like, you uncoordinated. You a little this. And then she showed me, and I'm like this. It was bad, bro. I'm doing it backwards. I'm doing forward. And then it started getting to the rhythm. And now I'm out there with the girls, jumping double dutch, trying not to get caught out there. But when you start looking at how your understanding gets developed, right? That mom culture, that food, when you having a long day, as soon as you got writer's block, what do you want, some rice and this?
I don't get writer's block.
Oh, I'm sorry. As soon as the but think about it. You having that long day, they always come with something to kind of lift you up. They know how to lift you up. My mother-in-law, has the way to say something like, I bought a stove the other day, right? And she goes, the flickers doesn't, like this, it has 4 flickers, right? It doesn't work, right? And I'm like, this is some bullshit, right? So I go, let's look at some stoves. So we look at the stove, and all of a sudden the microwave doesn't work. And the toaster is out of play, right? I'm like, she thinks it's fucking Christmas, right? But at the same time, grandma takes care of the babies with the youth. She about to shake me down. And understanding that how moms have a different, the way they nurture us, right? If your mama's stove is busted, dude, you gotta get a new stove. If mama's complaining, I'm team mama's boy, that's just how I get down, right? If she got a problem, dude, that's my problem. You know what I mean? So now when she gave me the jump rope, right? I always make films about my mother's deceased, right? So my mother-in-law now. When my mother gave me the jump rope, it's because I couldn't handle coordination. She put me in dance. She put me in tap and ballet, 2 of the hardest fucking dance that you could do. And I got no rhythm, right? To the point where I begged for ballroom. And then I got nice with the salsa and the hustle and the foxtrot and the swing. And she goes, son, I had to see what you were good at. I just had to throw you fire, right? Threw me in and then you started seeing like their understanding of how do I build this young man?
It goes back to that whole thing, the Linda Ronstadt thing, the thing about all these people trying new things.
Right.
You know, like in the classroom, creativity, God-wise, you're young. So at this age, though, you're supposed to be trying out everything.
How old?
You know, you should be trying out. Right?
Wow. That's how
you should be trying out if you could, right? You should be trying out if you could rhyme. You should be trying out if you could sing. You should try out all the things that are expected of Black people in the cliches of America, but then all the other things too. You know what I'm saying? That's what I say. You should do challenges of how well you could read, how much you could read. I used to do stuff like that when I got knowledge. I would do things, when we got knowledge, I would do things like, how many hours can I read in a row? And I broke whole nights reading.
Like a tolerance?
Yeah, like how straight I could read, how many hours I could read straight. These are things exercisers do. And I'd be the next day, and I'd be all fucked up, and I was like, I'm still reading though, but not very well. And I'm, you know,
he goes right to the example, right? The young God is knowledge born, right? Yeah. My knowledge born, like I have 16, 19, right, and then 9, right? So a young, like you can actually be our son at that age. So now when you come in and you seeking certain things, right, as a scholar, you come in with kind of like the been there, done that guys for you. How did this work for you, Sunez? I would like to try that. As soon as it's, hey, go here, try this, try that, and then that's how
it goes back to that whole thing, the secondary thing, right? Because it's add-on, it's a redundancy. It's a redundancy. Wisdom is secondary. That's a redundancy. We all know that's second, so you're gonna have to say that. So you're
But
saying
then
it though for the woman.
secondary.
And no, in the history of it was to remind the woman that she should know her place, though, right? The problem with teaching women, though, is that they're taught with a goal in mind, to be mine. But what happens is that every single student, especially original people, have to be taught that they have a mastery within themselves to achieve. That every single earth has to master something themselves, that is irrespective of any individual, including her God too. You know what I mean?
Wait, but you got to master. You say herself.
Right.
Of course. You say master her God. Like,
there's work to
That's what
master
you
of
mean.
herself. I mean herself.
yeah, right.
Not irrespective of her God. Like
Okay.
that it's not just him showing her what to do and how to achieve things
Right.
and reflect. There were things that she must realize of that mastery, and the greater the student to me, the more distinct and unique they are to that individual. You know what I mean?
Well, I said, but for that bill, because you didn't see it, right?
No, I didn't see it.
You didn't see it, but because just to be clear, because
I'm just saying the history that I have seen and the issues with
right,
that has
no,
been
but,
because of
but,
that.
But
But with that, I definitely want to see the whole thing
they
because
want because there was some brothers that was making like a lot of life was saying that my wisdom is supreme, is not secondary. And when he was saying my wisdom is supreme, he wasn't speaking in reference to a woman. He's speaking in reference to his wise words, ways, and actions. And my wise words, ways, and actions is supreme.
Sure, yeah.
You're saying now we get into the actual debate about it. Knowledge is first and foremost, and wisdom is second, and then we can add the airy to it. But then, are you trying to say that it's less than? No, it's not less than, because wisdom is needed. You know what I'm saying? So
it needed more explanation. You know what I mean? It needed just a little bit more explanation, because think about it. All the audience that was there, those were seasoned gods.
yes,
Those are like they had more gray hairs than black in that crowd. You know what I mean? Those are seasoned gods, right? We just starting to get some grays in there. Sunez is trying to hide what he got, right? But they had more grays than black. So now when you say something like to that audience, you got to really say, hey, listen. It was like you're like, I am the supreme wisdom. You're saying it now. You have to now. You just threw a challenge out there, and now the experts are looking at you like, I don't think so. You know what I mean? You kind of threw that out there, and it's like, prove it. You know what I mean? And then as you prove it, now you have to build on that. And what happens is that there was a disagreement there. But normally you get the head nods. You didn't get that. You got more, and then you got like other people intervening, and you kind of lost the sight.
and see, and I think that's because Dark Kenny called me up. He just you're showing this on a law school channel, because it really is like for me, it's almost like a mirror. So you can't teach a 5% anything, right? But at the same time, you put a mirror up, you say like, look, you got a book in your nose.
Yeah.
You got
the mirror and the friend. Remember, the mirror and the friend, right? The mirror, because guess what? Sometimes you got to master yourself. So the friend is like, hey man, you a little harsh. You know what I mean? My friends speak a little different, right? I got my friends that are very raw, but now that we're getting older, it's like that you're a little harsh, man. You know what I mean? Right. But it's like, dude, that was messed up. Man.
Sometimes harshness is needed.
Oh, but then the 19-year-olds will say, that was tough. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, what is that? And it's like tough love. So a lot of times when you're in that environment and you make a statement like that, you really have to say, what I'm about to say, all I need is a minute to explain this because y'all might beat me up. When I say my wisdom is supreme, what I'm saying is this. I'm not knocking the knowledge because I need that knowledge in order for this to be supreme. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that wisdom is my favorite weapon to use because you need to be able to see movement, whatever. I need the others. I need understanding. I need culture freedom. I need these things. But wisdom just happens to be my favorite. If you put it like that and you still give the others their importance, you keep the crowd. But if you never practice that, understand that was in your head, you just practice it right here. Dude, you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? Because now if he practiced that in the mirror and then did it in the build,
that's the whole thing though.
No one practices. No one says, how do I sound when I say this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, am I crazy? And that's what we do with the camera.
But that's the whole thing when you build with the gods, like learning and around them and stuff. Like you don't get to perfect and prepare every build. You get asked to build on things on the spot.
The theater of a great teacher. And I like that.
Right.
I mean, like,
Yeah, it's theater.
theatrical
And
theater
a way
of
to
it.
captivate, a way to
Improvisation.
Yeah.
Yeah, improv.
And by the way, that's why, we were talking about taking pauses out
Right.
when you build and speak and stuff. I would say put more in.
The pause.
Don't eliminate the pauses.
Well, of
put more
course.
pauses in.
Because they show the
Yeah,
emphasis of
yeah.
each thought.
Yeah.
That's why we're confused when you say you're gonna rhyme. Because you speak and you do the poem and you pause. And now, but rhyming doesn't have that. Now it has more of a, so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Sunez is gonna rap now. Let's see what he has.
This shit has evolved so much though that pauses are really a big part of it. You mentioned digging in the crates. Look at it. One of the pioneers of that to me is AG.
Oh, showbiz AG
Yeah,
is my personal favorite.
AG is like one of the best ever at turning the conversational pauses and extending them really long.
Because you know why? Because studying AG, watching showbiz AG literally in front of me, he wanted to get better. Because growing up in the Bronx, he didn't have the respect he have now from the peers that I was growing up with. And I watched AZ go from this to that. Same thing with Guru. This that they wanted to expand.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I saw that firsthand.
Sometimes you're dealing with pauses in a big cipher. Because you want to get yours off, right? You want to get yours off,
Yeah.
but then you pause, and then somebody comes in like, "Oh man, I didn't even finish, man. I didn't finish." I said, so pauses. I mean,
It depends on the cipher. In a cipher like that,
But if you rush,
you have to kind of be fast.
if you rush though, right? If you're rushed, but what happens is that the auditor, if you get in there and you start off smooth, and then what happens is they say, "Oh, that's how he talks."
Yeah.
And then what happens is that you gain
it depends because in ciphers like that at the Parliament, though, there's a lot of really, like I always say, there's a lot of theater involved in it. You have to be able to captivate. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to captivate.
Right, and if you don't captivate and you put a pause in there, somebody's gonna come along and snatch you.
So if it was
You know what I'm saying?
if it was Cypher and it was Wise Jamel, though, he'd be ready to just rapid fire spit it out. You know what I'm saying? He would spit it out. But if it was Dumar, he would say, "Listen, everything is not what you're saying. Everything is something else. Now, let me take you through it." And then he would, this is the pause. His step is the pause. And you follow his gait. And he's tall.
He's tall frame too. He's like
right.
6'3".
He was tall, so when he walked, it loped, and you got into his cadence, and now you're in the thing, and you're like, we have to be quiet now because he's really gonna say something. You know what I mean?
But that's where
master.
When I was in school, like my sister was theater, right? And we went to school, and my sister did theater, and I didn't get accepted for theater, but none of the boys signed up for the theater stuff, so they always like drafted us. So then, because I did the comedy stuff, when I did the theater role, everybody, you would laugh. He's like, "Oh, Ron's gonna make us laugh," right? But in the theater, it forces you to walk. The walking is part of it.
Right.
The talk, right? The movement, the space. And it's almost like if you come in there so poetic, so smooth, right? And as you're building, you can build as a professor versus you build like, "I gotta get out." It's like, you know what?
That's the similarities in the theater, because in the theater you have to have certain spots hit. You also have to be much louder than you are in, let's say, a movie. You don't have to be loud in a movie. You have to be loud in theater. You have to be heard in the back row. You know what I'm saying? Right? So these are the differences.
Because that understanding build, right? I was just like, wow. For the seasoned guys, this is they're wasting their time with
when you speak to bigger groups, it's like the classroom. You turn everything. I was thinking Dumar because Dumar used to turn every cipher into a classroom. These people didn't notice that. You know what I mean? So like when he would speak though, he's capturing the individuals. You know what I'm saying? And he's sensing what the individuals are interested in, and he builds with that. He steps in with that. He furthers that. And every time he's walking around though, it looks like he's going different places and using it as pauses, but he's basically coming back and regrouping and looking at what he has captured. Who's being captivated? Who's not being captivated? You know what I mean?
But Dumar used to check on us in school. Dumar used to come to the high school, and he had a relationship with our principal. Like, and the relationship he knew he's like, who's 5% is in here? And he's like, right, come here, right? And we end up in the office, and then he will bomb us, right? And he's like, well, what's your grades like? I'm like, yeah, like C+, B-, whatever. He's like, why? You know what I mean? And I would say, hey, I'm not a strong scholar, right? But then I'm like, I don't know you, Mister, who you? You know what I mean? And then the dialogue, right? And then he would say who he was and why he came to check up on us. It was me and my buddy Sharif, right? And we only was in our school. And then when he came and he was like, do you understand what you have, old guy, young guy? Do you understand the power that you possess right now? You're squandering it there, young grasshopper. You're letting this, you know what I mean? He can't bomb us like he would bomb an adult because we're children.
Of course.
So he's more or less nurturing where it's like, guys, you're wasting your opportunity. You're wasting your opportunity here. And then what happens is he started just coming to the school every now and then checking on us, right? And those little like, yo, the God, how do you want to? You don't get challenged in school. Like this is school. Nah, there was no, I guess no boundaries when it came to like once they knew, yeah, let me. And then because he had a relationship with our principal, she would pull him. It's like, yeah, I know you. We grew up. I got two of them right here, right? And guess what? They're not acting right. And they kind of knew who had the influence over you. You mean because of that culture that you're in, especially like in our teen years.
Support systems. That's important.
Well, I mean, he would come in there and he was had like a suit on, right? And you thought like he was somebody else. Like was he an attorney or something? You know what I mean? Like who is this guy? And then when you got to know him, it was like, oh. And then when you noticed that the relationship that he had with the older guards and oh, he's very he's kind of like the mayor, right? You know what I mean? We would say. I didn't know that he was the national spokesperson.
Yeah.
So in those years, I was in high school from 94 to 98, right? He would come into the school. And he's like, oh, you two come in. And then we would come. And he kind of knew our schedule. Him and Father Bouchon. Because Father Bouchon lived like around the corner. And Father Bouchon, this way he had the dreads. He would come and he's like, yeah, let me talk to y'all. And right after school, we had to build with him. You know what I mean? We got our book bags on. Now come in. You know what I mean? And we didn't escape that. You know what I mean? And they was just wondering like, hey, so what's next for you? You know what I mean? Are you doing college thing? You do me? I was like, I'm full bent on milk, and I didn't know Father Bouchon Town was a soldier. So he's like, bro, are you sure that's what you want? Most people knock it. He's like, are you sure that's what you want? I was like, yeah, college is not for me. He's like, just know what you're getting into. Just know this, know that. And then he was kind of like supportive, but others were like, no, which was like, I guess it was refreshing. You know what I mean? Like this is what I want, and finally somebody didn't push back. But I didn't know he was from that. A lot of guys you don't know that has a military background. But then I hear the stories of Allah, right? And then you look at how they train us in the military. I'm like, no, that's army. You know what I mean? You don't have to be like this. I could just walk and you could see it. And what happens is that it's like, who is that right there? You know what I mean? Your ways and actions, and from what I hear, very quiet, not really outspoken. But these are like secondhand accounts, right? But it's like some guys I'm animated. I'm an animated guy. Only in my realm. You know what I mean? Only in my realm. No, most of the time I'm just pretty quiet. But if you find me in the gym or you find me around my buddies, I'm like Hulk Hogan on, you know what I mean? Like, but it's just like that understanding when I saw that, I was like, why are they wasting their time on this? I was like, hey, change the topic. You know what I mean? Change the topic.
I think that when I was getting knowledge, there was always an ambivalence against writing plus lessons. But all the elders I was really learning from, they was writing plus lessons. They was writing down. And it was Dumar who gave me the realization that when I teach and I actually say something that I think is unique and useful, I'm going to write that as a plus lesson as a teaching so I don't forget. And I'll remember all my understandings in that kind of format, that it would be okay to do it like that. And that's really from Dumar. Infinite Al-Jamar did the same thing. You know what I mean?
But those things were typed. Like typewriter.
Typewriter. Word processor. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you could do 90 minutes on that, you should be able to do like 2 something on these. Those things were typed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that means that person really took the time, and those were typed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but then there was a few plus lessons of that time period that was some garbage.
Right.
That wasn't right. Or they had some ham in it. So you had to we had to really sit through that stuff.
Right.
So you had to really be on point. So I know why a lot of guards would be against a lot of those plus lessons.
Absolutely,
because those plus lessons, they sometimes be led people in different directions.
I think it's really Mecca that really started to make more plus lessons and write things down, even if they got it wrong. Like, you know, when they go the greatest story never told, people argue about that.
Oh yeah, that's enough.
Right?
Right.
But they were like, we have to write something down. And a lot of it was because of the prisons too. They wanted to give something when people mail things here to have something to give.
Can I ask
the layers. Yeah,
what was the greatest story never told? Because
that's a plus lesson about the father's history.
Okay.
Yeah, and there were some things that was in there that wasn't accurate. You know what I'm saying?
It's
But,
not
you know,
accurate.
So
Some of it is not as
Jamal-
chronologically
so
strong.
Jamal's song, Greatest Story Never Told, is that accurate?
I can't.
Oh, what Lord Jamal, from what I remember, yeah, that's pretty much
It's
this.
pretty accurate.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
There aren't major flaws in that.
Okay.
He didn't say the earth was flat on that song.
Yeah.
I'm a rapper now. I can just throw loose darts.
Yeah, he threw a dart because I've seen Gil Bill about that with the God and talking about that. And I asked him one day, I said, what was his issue with the God? And it was the flat earth issue.
Okay, so my issue really stems from, this is a person who has had influence, who was given influence by way of his promotion by, the establishment.
Right.
And now he's using he's had this knowledge for 30 plus years. And then when I built him, this is in 2018.
Okay.
I asked him, he tells me the earth was flat. I said, how long you been studying this? He said 6 days.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, now.
I'm trying to put this out to the world like that.
At this time, he hadn't started yet. He hadn't started putting out work. But I'm thinking this is the great Lord Jamal.
Oh, so you got the behind the scenes cut.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it is this is like the first time Rod Digger comes along, and Rod Digger's like, nah, I don't know about that, Jamal. Like, blah, blah. He's like, no, this is what it is. And he's like, now he's trying to like beat us in the head with it. No, this is what it is, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, bro. How do you reconcile the seasons? How do you reconcile time zones? How do you reconcile? He said, no. You see, you try to go into 120, and I'm trying to bring you out of 120. I'm trying to bring you back into 120. You see what I'm saying? So,
Now I see what was it.
I see it
now.
That's almost like Sunez saying the
he
world is
countered
flat.
that going back into 120 is like trying to believe 120. But you're supposed to be You're supposed to be disproving 120. That's a scientific method.
Mm-hmm.
You take something and you disprove it. In other words, I see that the original man is God, but every day I'm trying to find more things that could possibly impede that and take the challenge to study that. You know what I'm saying? Study the counters. You know what I mean? Study the things that could find flaw in it. All of those things. That's a scientific method. Everything else is incorrect.
Question everything.
Because that's
Right.
help you
Question
solve
everything.
Right.
You question everything.
I always say this. One of my favorite philosophers, G. Krishnamurti, said, once you know something to be true and you prove it to be true, and now you accept it to be true, it now has become a belief. In other words, for Krishnamurti, everything had to be living and with the possibility of either growing deeper or being proven wrong. You see? So there's you either learn more so that the black man is God, or you disprove it. Not you just believe it and I'm never going to question this again.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
It's always correct.
When you look at 120 lessons, this is not a holy book.
Right.
So it's not something that because the questions, all the questions are right and exact, right? But the answers are very near correct, right? So now with your mathematics, you take that and you get it to bring it to right and exact. Because there's some things that Elijah said that he's a little off.
There's also
There's a few things, but we quote it to say, okay, now show and prove it. Right? I mean, do you agree with his answers?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Now, if you do agree with it, then show and prove it. If you don't agree with it, show and prove it.
But like when you said a plus doesn't have a class behind it. Because now when the student says, I either agree or I don't agree, right? Then what happens is now it makes you reshape the lesson to make sure the understanding is there.
To make sure the understanding is there.
Because now what happens is that So Sunez beat me up one day, right? I'm basically doing almost like a plus lesson, right? And Sunez like, yeah, you're missing something, God. I'm sorry, right? And then when he's like, yo, it's missing something, right? And I had to go back to the drawing board. So I can't put something out, and then here's where you train with high explosives, right? So if I put a plus lesson out, I have to come here to do the lesson and get the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Now, if I get a thumbs up, but a not quite, I got to come back. And I have to do it again. You know what I mean? Because what happens is that because if it's good, now it's like you almost become the subject matter expert in that now. And then what happens is someone can get that understanding and then they can build on that.
The classroom is where you experiment with high explosives.
Yeah, because you always say
this is where you experiment. It's okay to make mistakes in the classroom. Why is you have an idea about something? You say, listen, I think the way I see it, it goes like this. And it's like, well, you're off because of this and this and that. You know what I'm saying? That's how you end up directing the nature of your course. You know? This is why I say, one of the first things for any student that comes into my classroom is to figure out their very next question by going through a distinct path of seeing that if everything they think they know is true, so that their next question is based on truly what they don't know. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And when you come up with this, you become a better maker of questions. You know, it is very rare that you can have a classroom where it's based on the questions that you have, as opposed to just a select distinct, you know, curriculum that you're being taught just in order to do something. You know what I'm saying? Or to perform something. Those are okay, right? But in this, so you're learning about the knowledge of self. And so the curriculum cannot be the same for every single person. It absolutely cannot. And that's why every single class session is always going to be different. And depending on the person that's dealing with it.
Because you got to demonstrate, right? Sometimes there might be video. You got to appeal to the auditory of the student. So if I could put a bill together, and that's as soon as like you're missing this and you're missing, you got a lecture, you're gonna lose them, right? So now you take good criticism, you go back to the drawing board, and then you try again. And then when you try again, you refine it more. Then you practice it. And what happens after you practice it, because everything showing improvement is exactly that, right? I can show proof a lesson now at 43. That's going to be tighter at 45. It should be, because now I'm ironing out the fat. What works, right? And what happens, and that's how you kind of like you build the understanding, because sometimes you don't get a chance to meet. That's like you meet the artist, right, Lord Jamal. You met him like it's like that's like me talking to students. It's like, yeah, the world is flat. What? Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like shoot ass. We're the 120. Did you remember? You know what I mean? And it's like you almost like
that's exactly what it was. That's exactly wait a minute. So
I thought we were the same.
Wow. So now we're saying
and that's the examination.
120 is wrong. He's saying it's wrong.
And that's the examination.
And now he's coming to say like no. And now I'm gonna come and teach you what's right.
And that's the examination.
Really?
So now it's like, wait a minute. But you own this forum. You can't. So the understand. I should be able to have my. I should be able to only. I should just cater it to my audience. So if I'm dealing with someone who has no 120 or maybe just a little bit, I may just dumb down the words a little bit, make it a little bit more plain. When you deal with someone else, you know what I mean. It's
yeah. And he in that note though, he really fell a victim on a lot of face value though. Mm-hmm. You know, he was saying like, "Oh, the moon is so close. Can't you tell? You could just look at it." But with the Earth being round, all he had to do was do a. Why didn't he? But he didn't want to accept the simple horizon test. The horizon test of the way a ship moves and the way it leaves, the distance. That itself, though, is proof of the Earth is round. You know what I mean?
Well, see, also,
and he don't want to use that physical test, eye test. But he wants to use eye test like, oh look, it looks so close to us. It can't be like that.
And now let's see, this is the thing about with a lot of the big head scientists in our nation, right? You want to talk about big like a born mastermind or somebody like a Saladin, right? Like who you know you unplug from the support system because you think that you know it all.
So you step back from you get back, and then you don't really go amongst the guards and deal with the refinement of it. Right. You don't deal with the pressure that's gonna or the fire that's gonna the ego is involved. And you think, no, I got it. Y'all got it wrong. I got this.
I got it all figured out.
Yeah.
I got the reason why we're all fucking up, or the reason why we're dealing with this. I got the answer to this. So y'all are fucking up as opposed to going and actually building with them and, you know, looking at those, taking those questions and then knowing what answer to how to respond and come back with more questions.
Right.
So that we can actually get this right and exact.
But the flip side of understanding is what? Misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding.
So you really have to, like, I don't know. Me, maybe because I'm more military than anything, right? Fear. I use fear of failure, right? And you hear this with a lot of military guys, right? We use fear, and policemen. The fear of failure is why we study hard. Fear is why we go over the lessons, why we practice, why we rehearse, why we do these things, because the failure can be your life, or it could be embarrassment, or it could be to your peers. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And everybody wants to have that credibility of, hey, he's good to go. Or that guy's solid.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And amongst your peers, and that's where the examination. So now, you know, if in that situation, if it's like, yeah, this is the God, and then he actually like, whoa.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yo,
And so then another concept we teach is like, yo, whoever you idolize, throw the questions at them too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Challenge them too, because at one point,
if it's right, that the whole concept of the support system, you know what I'm saying? Because if I ever have an idea, everything is pitched to people. So people thinking they see stuff, they don't see me saying anything not incorrect. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, with trolls, they gotta make up stuff. You know what I'm saying? They gotta remix. They gotta do remixes on what I said.
Yeah, I told you that somebody's tagging me and shit. So it's somebody that
They
knows
get
you.
into it.
Yo, they tagging me and some shit to try to discredit Sunez because they know he's my teacher. So it's clearly obvious this is somebody he knows that has an issue with him.
welcome to
This is a part of the internet thing, you know, like there are people who are out there who think that they know better, and then, you know, they might have, you know, hold dear to certain people, like, you know, their name drop, like freedom's not here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or name drop Allah B.
Right.
He's not here.
Right.
But those are my guys, and they say this and this, that, and third. But you are so far outside of the cipher
Uh-huh.
that you don't even
Hey,
you don't even really realize. I don't even really realize that those people are not even here no more.
Right. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're not willing to come amongst the bill to actually.
Yeah.
So if Sunez is teaching something that's not right and exact, then come to the school and bring what's right and exact.
But that's how you stay relevant,
That's
right?
right.
So there's no longer Allah. He's in the essence. He's no longer here, right? And me and Allah went back and forth a lot, right? Because a lot of the time I didn't understand shit, and he just got punched you, right? As the older guys do, right? And then, but what happens is that so he's no longer here, but now you have a new student on the rise, and they stay fresh. And what happens is that the passing of the torch, right? So as much as you start looking at, that's why I laugh at the guys like Darkim, because Darkim don't want to get old, but he's now stepping into that role of an elder. But he, you know what I mean? Like he's like, yo, Darkim, you know you're elder, right? Nah, just leave me. You know, like he's slowly embracing it, but
you know what?
he's
The
slowly
guys that we
coming.
were talking about, like, why is Jamel? I said, why is Jamel Infinite Al Jamar? And Dumar, when I was getting knowledge, though, they didn't like to be called elder either.
You see it now, right?
Yeah.
And then like why is Jamal when he found out like I was in the Marines, he would just call me Devil Dog. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. You know what I mean? And that was our little connection. But there's a difference between the soldiers that build, then when the Marines build, and then when your average guard builds, right? It's just you'll see a little bit more like he was on fire.
You said soldiers and Marines?
Yeah, so it's a little rivalry within the military branches.
You talk about like army people.
Right, yeah. So military
Armies and soldiers, you're saying.
Yeah. So
Okay.
military, like you got Navy.
You're a Marine.
I'm actually both, God. I'm actually both. So when I left high school, I went into the Marines. I earned that title, and I did my time there. I became a cop. Then in 2020, because I'm doing a ministry role, I went back into the Army, did their basic training, earned that title too, and then went through their school system and did the wars and like deployed with them. So I'm actually a soldier too. Okay. But it's the same thing when you show and prove. You can show and prove anywhere. So when they do things in the military where a brief, right? A brief, I have to, if I have commanders and people in my area, I have to in 2 minutes tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why is it significant, right? Why is it significant to you? And then the next person goes, and then the next person goes. You really have to keep that brief. So when you see guys build, like we talking about the cadence, I'll go with the brief and I'll say, hey, listen, good evening, gentlemen, staff. this is what we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z, and we want to execute, and this is the support. Boom, and I step back and I'm out. When people rush, nobody heard you. They do to get theirs off, like you said, but nobody really heard you. Then what happens after you do the build? That's when everybody, well, explain the thing of redemption, right? And karma. Go into the karma. It's like, no, it's not what you think. You almost have to recap what you built on. It's not what you put out, you get back.
Right.
It's almost the cards that you dealt. And how do you play them? You know what I mean? And so that's how I took his build, right?
And you got to exercise your knowledge. At the end of the day, you got to exercise. Like you got to explain. You bring it to the whole to actually shape and mold it.
You'll hear the guards that have influence on you, right? So my guards was P.E.A.C.E, Father Divine, right? Freedom, right? Those were the guards in my neighborhood. So when I do a build, I have to be able to do the positive and the negative side of it. So if I do an understanding, I have to do a misunderstanding build, right? That was all freedom. Freedom was like everything has a positive, and then as a youngin, he was big on that. He's like everything has negative and positive to it, and you have to see both sides, son. And being that me and his kids went to school together, right? Then P.E.A.C.E was poetic. P.E.A.C.E is a lot like Sunez, right? With the pen, very poetic. They back up the history, they give their assessment, and then they build on something else, right? And then notice that, look at the similarities. P.E.A.C.E started rhyming. Now look who's rhyming, right? You see it now, right? So there's certain trends that you start seeing, right? Because now it's the passing of the guard. In the 40s, like we're in our free soccer years, we're looking at young guys, young men like you, like, you got to take this. You got to, even if it's bad, it'll teach you an understanding of what you don't have. It'll show you the principle of timing. And you show the principle of structure. It'll show you, dance will show you timing. You know what I mean? Theater will teach you timing, right? Get in these things and just to see what you're made of. And you might find out, dude, you might have the next Hollywood actor. Who knows? But when you get into these things, it's just, it will shape your understanding of why certain things are important. So when you see like Sunez go from, was it tendering? What's it called?
Tender's trap.
Tender's trap. Right? It was just like when you now you're in the understanding, right? You're looking at this individual and they're saying it, and it's like, wow, this individual had a big idea. His understanding at one point was, this is what love is going to be like. And he misunderstood the real world. So he didn't see that. He didn't have nobody say, watch out for that nephew. I wouldn't do that if I was you. Or, you know, he didn't have that friend. So then, so now he has to, sometimes you got to shape your own understanding. You know what I mean? And then sometimes when you see the lessons, like, I really should have understood that. I really should have understood how heavy this earth can be when it's on my shoulders. You know what I mean? Now I gotta press it, right? And then but it's still, if you press it the wrong way, you don't time it right, you're gonna hurt yourself. So a lot of times when you like that build with the understanding, I was just like, damn it, let's change the subject, bro. You know, like change the subject. They're going out to a tantrum, almost like.
At the
yeah, I was like, change the topic. You know what I mean? And sometimes it goes on like when they do the old parliaments. You should be able to have a 5-minute window to do your build. 30 seconds for everybody take it in. Maybe somebody asks a question or two, and the next person jumps in. You know what I mean? But then what happens is that everybody says that, and you have the time, keep it in the force. All right, that's it. Next, you want to go again? You got to sign back up. But it didn't have that type of structure. And then what happens is that the individual who came to say, all right, I want to see who's going to be dropping there, because the build is the beginning of the plus lesson. It's the seed of the plus lesson. Because if you build on something, it's like, the next thing, do I want to expound on that? And you expound on it, they let you know but the plus lesson, if you write a plus lesson, you really have to come here and teach the plus lesson and take us how you got to that because now what happens is that we give you the thumbs up and we give you the credibility, and then it's added and it says, hey, you got the Wednesday stuff. You know what I mean? Or hey, this is going on. Now you're not doing a rush build in a cipher. You have a classroom from this time to this time, so it could be understood, it could be made understood. And guess what? Some people are going to challenge it. So
understanding is born through the weight of knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, those builds at the parliament, that to me, that's the athletics. You gotta be athletic enough to be in there.
And you gotta know somebody almost sometimes. You know what I mean? You can't just come up, who is that? And guess what? There should be certain individuals that should be like, oh yeah, Robbie, they hang out with P.E.A.C.E. They went to the movies and Freedom, they went to the studio together. Like there's certain things that there's another relationship that you have with an individual other than here. You know what I mean? There's another, like you have outside relationships with gods where you do music stuff, right? You do while y'all do the music stuff, and that's a light thing. But then if you took it to weights and something like that, then you and I might hang in the park, right? We might work out just like interests.
Peace,
Peace,
guys.
Peace.
You know it's late when you King Justice tell us go home. But you lose time. Strong builds, you actually lose time. You know what I mean? Because and that's the beauty.
You're
of
saying I lost a lot of time these days, man?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially in the winter months when I see you trekking to like on the train. You know, like a lot of times with the travel, maybe like the train they running. You know, it's a lot of things you gotta take into account.
But you gain a lot though. You gain a lot from doing all that though. Like
of course,
I mean and I enjoy it though. Like like this. These are my plus lessons. Like a gem that I've got. Like I keep repeating it. Like the theater of your understanding. Like so do you know
one
how
of the
like
reasons that young guys as yourselves should go to Parliament, things like that, is because you need to be tested. You need to be able to see at the critical moment, what do you say that is most important? And you need to practice it. So that's the whole thing about a build, about building, sharing this mathematics, building mathematically with the 85. At this moment in time that I meet this person here, what's the most important thing that I could say to them? You know what I mean?
Wow.
It's real.
We call it forward.
This is why, like, if the epicness of making a song, right? Because it's done and it stays there. It's out there. That's very comfortable to me, that aspect, because I'm used to saying things that have to be useful at that moment to that individual. You know, how well do you learn of the individuals you just meet and just speak? In a Parliament cipher like that, you can't just survey everybody, right? Now you have to go with what is most sincere and most important to you, and then build on it, right? This is very difficult. These are the challenges that you have to have, that you need. I think you need them. Yeah,
challenges is really
you need
important.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what he gave me. God, what is the heart of the matter? The heart of the matter is you're a public servant, and your job is to protect people. And your job is to make sure the people who are protecting people know that they're responsible to protect people, not hurt them, protect them.
Right.
And know that they have a sincere responsibility and a sincere duty. How do you display that? You know what I mean? When all the darts are coming at you. And then they'll say, you hear the saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's one argument. But then when I put a lesson together, the first thing I do after I put a lesson together or whatever, I position it. I become to my biggest hater. And I start throwing darts at it. And I start testing it. And I go, and I start asking questions. And what happens is that I act like the enemy, right? Because whatever plan this is more military science, right? Whatever plan you put together, two things have a say so: weather and the enemy. No matter what plan you put together, weather and the enemy. These are things that you learn in the military, right? You can put together a perfect Parliament, but the blizzard comes, and now who's going to shovel the snow so people come in? You know what I mean? So you have to look at those rain dates, and you're looking at everything. So when you put that bill together, you got to look at it from this. You start looking at the angles. When you fight, it's not straight on. It's the angle. I want to hit, and then I want to get that angle. You know what I mean? To use layers, right? But it's still in that concept. It's angles. I don't want to go straight to you. I want to get you off so I can hit you. It's angles. So if I'm not going to go confrontation with you, I got to get that angle. So you'll learn those things when you start doing the bit. You'll come. I may be speaking, but if I lock in on you, I just lost the audience. So I have to take your question and then position myself to the audience. So when you start sitting, and that's where it's crucial, because I may get to him and be like, God, the question was over there. So you take okay, I heard the question. You step out, you speak to everybody else. There may be another question, or there may be silence, and then you say, thank you very much, and you walk out. Or you say peace, and whatever you do. But they're watching everything. That's what's in the mirror. From how you look to how you walk, talk, you're being sized up. And then they're gonna know out of where you from. You know what I mean? You Medina Gaza, the Medina is sweeter. You know, you have the little, everybody has their little rivalry niches, right? And then you go other places, and everyone's just different. But they know from who you are. They can coincide with how you walk and talk. When you walk into the room, oh wow. Or when you go to, if you walk to the bill, dude, they're gonna eat you alive. You almost gotta walk in, and your president says, take that deep breath and then build. But if you just get in that cipher, you rush it, you ain't breathing, which is everything in fighting. That's the pause, right? So when you talk about breathing, it's I'm breathing, I'm getting, because now if I'm breathing, I'm relaxed. If I'm breathing, I'm getting my point across. If I'm breathing, I have my cadence. If I'm, Pun was my favorite rapper, but when they killed me. You know what I mean? Because that part, right? But he had a physical element. Right. You know what I mean? Still, but he had the, and it's like, oh man, they gotta edit that out. But you start seeing how they take that deep breath and they spit it out. And then you catch it again. And you catch it. So now it's like, yo, you gotta get in there. But if you get in there, if you're not going hand to hand and you just spit it out and you ain't breathing, I can catch you at an angle and rock. You know what I mean? So a lot of it is you're sizing up the opponent, you're sizing up yourself. But in hindsight, I love how Sunez put it, you have to get to the heart of the matter. Because here, the knowledge of self is about you take care of yourself, and after that, take care of everybody else. Sorry, this is what you signed up for. It's in the degree. This is what you signed up for. You know what I mean? Because if you don't do it, guess what? You know what I mean? Not only is it a penalty, but you also turn into an asshole. Honestly, you're supposed to help people, and then now you don't want to help them no more. So to me, when I don't want to help people no more, I leave.
People are getting this knowledge and living under the guise of God and not taking the path of being a 5%. And part of that though is being under that test though. You know? They don't want to be under that test though. And the problem is though is that when you go there, it's like when you learn in the classroom, that's where you make mistakes and you get taught. But the parliament though really is a classroom for brothers like yourself that are newborn, that are learning this. You know, like when you're in ciphers, you come to the school just to hang out though and see the elders that are here. That's supposed to be a challenge as well. But when you're in the parliament cipher and you get stuck having to build in the parliament cipher, that's a great challenge. Because what opportunity would you have to fail on the stage and not ruin anything? And when you look at it like that, then you understand it better. In other words, what I mean is, you get this knowledge and you go out there and you teach it all fucked up and you hurt people's lives. You give them ego instead of insights to responsibility. And you ruin their lives though. And you only devalue this knowledge more because you taught it wrong. You see what I'm saying? So it's important though to be on those stages and to really practice, you know, and to be able to say to God, this is how I see it though. Listen, everything that I teach here seems unorthodox to certain people that learned it rigid or and often incorrectly. Incorrectly, because they talk a lot of shit, but they wasn't around. All of the elders that I was around, they really wasn't here, and I was. So they see some unorthodox method to them that I teach that, and not realize that this is a self-styled wisdom I have perfected among all the elders. You know? I hear people say, oh, look, he's not really right, you know, because in Medina, we don't teach refinement and shit like that. But I was with Infinite Al-Jamal all day. And he knows how he knew how I saw power refinement all the time.
He didn't teach that.
No, he didn't teach refinement.
Oh, he didn't? Okay.
You know? And I would tell him, I see refinement as focus, though. I don't see it as culturing, and I don't see it as a definition of culture because that number has passed. You know what I mean? And he would say, I see what you're saying, though, but he didn't use it.
I kind of see you turning into him with the, you know how over the years his glasses got thicker? I kind of see Sunez's glasses get thicker over the years. But you know who builds simple? God Supreme. He don't got the wind anymore. You ever see how he builds now? Like when we talk about the Kung Fu guy, when God Supreme build, he'll say about 10 words. God.
Right. It gets more concentrated.
Right.
It gets more concentrated.
Right.
If you don't get it, hold it, go home with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like he's
I'm not gonna stay here to see if you say you got it. I don't really have the time for that. Yeah, you know. And people take that because a lot of the young today though they're weaker. They're more thin-skinned. You know what I'm saying?
Like they take more shit personally.
Yeah, they can't really take the hard criticisms and stuff. You know,
Because a lot of them didn't grow up
Right,
outside like we did. They grew up in technology. We had to actually be in the fucking concrete.
that's part of it. You know what I'm saying? So they're not used to being told things.
Mm.
So they're not really being taught person to person in that way. You know, and that's the way they design it though, because it turns us more effeminate. You know what I'm saying? And the aggression lopsides becomes lopsided toward the woman, right?
Right.
All of this is wonderfully done by design. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's still all Willie Lynch. You know, everything you see now with like women being more masculine, men being more feminine stuff, that's still all Willie Lynch stuff. You know? Because the lopsiding was with what? The mother being the protector and being the aggressive protector. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's still all the same concepts of Willie Lynch.
Yeah, so it's like what's going on, the old against the young now.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
Division.
Division.
Constant division.
Yeah.
But the opposite is that you flip it, right? When you talk about the older, like, no, go ahead, God, you was about to build.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I was gonna say that basically when you was talking about Willie Lynch, how they would make the child, pardon actually, they make the mother afraid to go against the slave master
Right.
by taking the father away from the child,
Mhm.
by beating the father in front of the child. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
So now the child, he's afraid, and now his mother is afraid as well. So his mother gonna do everything to protect the child. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna make him too smart. I don't want him to be too smart. You feel me? Even if he is smart, I'm not gonna tell nobody he's smart. You feel me? Because now he's gonna be of value. You know what I'm saying? Now he might take my son away from me.
Yeah, so vital leadership skills. That I would say this though, and you're young, you need the student has to learn to blend daring innovation, right, and preservation. They have to preserve these teachings right and exact, but also have the daring for innovation, which challenges, almost everything. If you don't have those two things, then there's really no opportunity for you to add on in a unique way. That also happens in our nation too, because we forget about the daring innovation that we have to be willing to allow the youth to engage in. We just want them to say it rotely, and that's where you get people saying like, "Oh, this is only done this way," or "The father did it this way." They use all the arguments that the father actually never used. Right? Number one argument that the father never used. The father said that. The father never said to anybody else, said, "I said this, and so it is so." I've never talked to a firstborn Al Jamal, firstborn Prince, spent lots of time with them. I never heard them tell me like, well, he said that's what it is. He told me he said so. He never said that. You know what I'm saying? So this was somebody that gave you an actual definitive answer that was separate from his own dominance as an individual, right? Dominance in his position, dominance in his social position, right? Because they were like his children in many ways, right?
Just imagine all those random encounters he had. You know what I mean? Hey man, you the guy, like just coming off the trip. You the guy that said, you know what I mean? Just imagine all the random encounters that he had with youth. And they didn't have, it's like, yes, well, who told you this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Those random encounters.
We take for granted though, this is why we ought to work hard. We take for granted though that saying that we're the true and living God sounds nuts to people, but hardly as nuts as it was in the 60s. Where nobody ever said anything like that. The only people that were saying that, there were people that were saying that in the modern era, but they were basically under. You had yogis like I was mentioning, Maher Baba. He was saying stuff like that, but he was, they were looking at us like cult leaders and shit like that. You know what I mean? Maher Baba in his life here, when he was in America, took like years and years of silence, and he would only write on like this board. Like he took vows of silence and shit. Like they were so eccentric that you didn't really take him seriously, right? Jiddu Krishnamurti, he taught a lot here as well. He was saying that we were God and everything, but it was so philosophical that it sounded like something that like you had to really build up to, and it didn't take as offensive. It didn't seem offensive. The father was teaching average kids this. You know what I mean? Use supreme mathematics, make it so simple that children can see it and explain it. Now it's a problem though. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Teenagers don't listen.
Yeah, I'm supposed to teach teenagers anything.
Teenagers don't.
That's what makes it amazing. I don't know how you taught so many teenagers though.
And you know what's funny?
Yeah.
So when I encounter I encounter them on the street all the time, right? There has to be a dialogue, and with the they just want to be heard, right? And once they heard, it's like, son, I don't agree with nothing you just said. You know what I mean? I don't agree. And you know what's funny? But there's a reason why I don't agree with nothing you just said. I'm old. Please explain a little bit more.
Right.
You know what I mean? What happens is like you just said, hey, I'm old, but I didn't shut them down. I don't agree. Explain a little, help the old guy understand. And then what happens is that they don't have the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, right? So what happens is that when you question them, it forces them internally to like, all right, how do I break this down for this individual? And it forces them so now they have to make this understanding in here come out for someone who's saying, hey, I don't understand what you're talking about. And that's almost like the first steps of planting those seeds when you're dealing with youth, because they want to show you how much they know.
Right.
And then you say, I don't get it. Can you have, like, I didn't know what cap meant, right? So my son's like, yeah, no cap. What's no cap? And then they're like, and I like help the old guy understand, right? And they're like, Dad, capping means you're lying. Oh, okay. So now when I'm on the street and I'm doing my job, the person saying, yo, no cap. And I'm like, student, for my understanding, what does no cap mean? And they say, no cap means like, can you just say no line just for this meantime? And then we go on, right? But now I have an idea, right? And now what happens is that that's their slang, that's their lingo now, right? That's what they say versus what we said, like bussin'. I'm not saying that. You know what I mean? And we said, oh, that was fat. We had our slang too that the elders weren't going to say. But when you get with the youth, what happens is that you keep that understanding, because as they leave, right? Like the guys that we know, Allah be fucking, they not coming back. But then what happens is that they always introduce you to someone else. That was one thing that Fakeem always did, right? You came in, yo, that's the guy, he got the clothing store, and that's the guy that cooked fish, and he took you around, so now that you knew who was who. So when they, just in case they leave, you still have a support system. You know what I mean? So now when somebody name drops, it's like, dude, I never saw you before. You know what I mean? I never saw you did that. You never, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, who sent you? But then when you see like the influence of where people come from and this, that, and the other, then you kind of see like, oh, if I really want to see your wisdom, I'll see what you spend your money on. You know what I mean? Or who you hang around. If I really want, soon as books, pens, anything with software, right? Cameras, microphones, drones, anything if I really want to see what you're into, I see what you spend your money on. Because money is tight nowadays, especially the older ones, right? Money is tight. Whatever you into, I can see what you spend your money on. And that's really where you start seeing understanding. It's like, dude, you bought X, Y, and Z. You bought this, but groceries cost this. Now we got to go through, food, clothes. I'm going through jewels. You know what I mean? So a lot of times they understand, like, yo, dude, we as fathers, man, we can't be buying wild shit. We got to. I buy some wild. It's like, Papi, I got a trip coming up. How much is your $200? We got. You're going to Rockefeller Center. Are you a rocket? Are you trained to be a? But everything is up now. You know what I mean? What a loaf of bread is what, $5 almost?
A bag of apples is $7.
Yeah, but these kids are scheming, and they got a lot more money than we had, a lot more money than we have now. Like,
and a lot more ways to lose it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? A lot more ways to lose it. So you can play a game and make money and pay for it. That's the new one. I could play a game on my phone, make $500, and don't really. And guess what? That's the loop. Notice that the fine print is in white. As the person's told, you start seeing more games, right? So yeah, they have these things. And what's the famous saying? Man, I've been 9. You ain't never been 43. You know what I mean? You ain't never been this, right? And then what happens is that now, especially now, the old and the young, is that like I said, you keep me young, I make sure you get old. That's the trade-off. You know what I mean? And that's because the minute that you're not fresh, you stale, you done.
Yeah, you done.
You done. So you're gonna see Sunez with the watch 20 years, the glass gonna be thick as shit, and he's gonna be infinite Al-Jabbar, just aiming for no reason, right? Because think about it. What did he say? God, you ain't been in a fight in I don't know how long, but they still had the fire, you know what I mean? And then he would bring you around. Sunez teach the class. Have you met him? And I haven't met him. Go meet him. All right, meet him. Sunez beat the hell out of me, right? And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, God, that's nice deal. Did you get to the heart of the matter? What was the focus? So, you know, just the understanding part is like, understanding is kind of difficult. If you really want people to understand, it's difficult because you got to know your audience, you got to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's people make it, they like, oh, knowledge with them. They make it seem like it's simple and it's supposed to be, but when you want to be good at it, it's hard. You know what I mean? You want to be good at it, you want to be, it's hard because you become the professor, you become the instructor on anything. I seen guards build all the time. Little girl walk up to us like, my chain came off my bike. Oh yeah, I don't know how to do that. Get along, little girl. You know what I mean? A real guard will be like, okay, what is this right here? A chain. They'll stop what they're doing for you because the baby's the best part. And it's like, yo, go get Puerto Rican Julio from around the corner, man. He know how to fix bikes. They'll find a solution because problems are always coming. You know what I mean? That's one thing about with mathematics. Problems are always coming. You got to really look at the problem, assess the problem. If it's a financial problem, like, do we have money for this? Don't get a house. That's a money pit in itself. You know what I mean? There's always a storm. There's always a leak. How do you have peace and there's a leak? You know what I mean? Because it's supposed to be your rest. Your rest should have nothing. Did you see the guys? Like the super don't come and check that's the heat. The heat is cold. Now you freeze in the house. There's no think about the peace stuff. It's not 45. How long you want to be here? You ain't see me in a year, so you ain't see me in a year, so all right.
I'm done when they let me go. Everybody let me go. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen you. I was in
Africa.
Huh?
I was in Africa.
It's Africa,
I was
right?
deployed in Africa.
Okay, no, that's dope. How long was you in Africa for?
9 months. So you trained 3 months, and then we was in 9 months in Africa. The horn of it.
You trained.
So anything you do, you train up for it.
No, how long did you train for? We
trained 3 months for the 9 months in Africa.
Okay, so that's a whole year basically. You saying?
I did a whole felony time.
Felony.
I did it. Yeah, man.
Where Africa were you with?
So the Horn of Africa is Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. That whole horn. So, you know, just can't really say too much why because of operation security, but that's when I was out there, and it's a little bit harder because when you return, it's like 10 deployments, right? When you come back home, you got to deal with the different. When the soldier comes back home or the service member comes back home, they have to try to get back into the family fold. Now, depending on how your family fold is, you can get there. And my thing is, I don't do anything. I just watch. I just observe because it might be on autopilot. They found a way to adjust. Sometimes when my first deployment, it was a 5-line fight. They happy I'm home and I got to jump right in. But they found a way to adjust, and I just got to find my way into the house. You know what I mean? I find my way in, and simple to find things is that this is broken, that's broken. But they have their own, you know, my sons walk each other to school. They have their how they sustain themselves. But now I got to get back into the dates with the wife again, the long walks again, the romance. I got to romance again because romance on live and everything else and sending flowers is different than physical now. I got to relearn my woman again. I got to what she likes, what she don't like within that year time. You know what I mean? The trips that we're gonna take together, and when you get back and they looking at you and because they see the horror stories and honey, are you gonna go to the doctor and get this? And they're very cautious of certain things. You know what I mean? So when you come back from those things, you ain't the same. You know what I mean? You got injuries there is no real doctors out there. You have medics and things like that, but your real physicians are back in the rear. So if you get hurt, you get sent to Germany and then you get sent back to America to actually see real physicians. So a lot of guys are nursing injuries with just Tylenol, ibuprofen, just to get through. And then when they get back, then they can actually get the help that they need. You dealing with suicide, depression, and a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? So while they're over there because you're away from family, but you're doing the service. You know what I mean? So it's very hard when you come back. So when you come back, the first thing I do is I do something with the kids first. You know what I mean? Because the wife is working. But normally I do the wife and then the kids. But I got to take it how I take it. So I'm going to baseball games and they're playing Little League. And, you know, my son ain't doing well. And then I'm coaching. He hears my voice and he's like, oh, shit, that's daddy. Now he's gripping the bat. So that's, now they got to perform. So it's a little bit. School teachers, I'm doing WhatsApp interviews. And they're like, yeah, where are you? I'm like, why? Because he ain't doing it like, normally they could tell when the man is not there. So it's a lot of strain. So when you come back, you're trying to like get back to what you know, but you just lost a whole year's time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So from 2022 to 2023, like for some odd reason, COVID don't exist anymore. You know what I mean? For some odd reason, it's like vanished. Wow, there's no such thing as COVID. Meanwhile, just before that, it was all about COVID, and then it just stopped. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, you know what I mean? So a lot of things you adjusting, but the whole thing when I first walked in, that Pound Town record, I thought that was a joke, and then I heard on the radio, and I always make fun of Sunez, and I'm like, yo, Sunez, can you spit like that? And he's like, God, please leave me alone. You know what I mean? But I thought it was a, but you're coming back, and now this is in. You know what I mean? So like, nah.
I'm talking about like it being by design and the training of our children through.
But now
the culture that we sold to them.
There's no TV.
You know what I'm saying?
There's YouTube. The kids are using YouTube.
Yeah.
So my son sees your videos, right? And he's like, a law school is so proper, right? The law school in Mecca, Dad, you still go there? Like, can we go there? Right? And I'm like, yeah, we can go there. But you better know your mathematics. You better know your math. I can't get the 8. What is the 8? Yeah, you're not going to embarrass me out here. You know what I mean? But you bring them anyway, because then they can see why it's important to know. And why Daddy has this culture that Daddy perfects. Well, Daddy, why are you always talking to yourself in the mirror? You know what I mean? Daddy, why you always rehearse? Why is the library like I have to, so I like Sunez's practice of rereading the books every year, right? But then you got a big giant library, like, oh, I gotta read. But now you just pick out the sections, right? So certain books, like As a Man Thinketh, it's like one of the popular ones. Certain rereads. You have to reread them because to revisit certain. So I'm in my I'm trying to get back into it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get back into it. So before you know it, I'm gonna be back, you know, rocking and rolling, hitting the streets, running and gunning, you know what I mean? And then doing what I'm doing with you, but just with a uniform on. And I do the same thing out there. It's like you are who you are. But a lot of individuals don't know. When you go out to other cultures, you really see, like, I like how freedom used to build that we're not slaves, we're prisoners of war. Right? I love how he used to say that. Even as a little boy, you ain't no slave, you prisoner of war. All right. And he used to get us in trouble all the time, right? Because you come around freedom, like, tell the truth, shame the motherfucker. And we who told you? They like, I was hanging around Danny Turner, and then freedom, right? And then so little influence, but when you get out there and you speak to the Kenyans, you speak to Somalians, we not the same. We come from the root, but we not the same. You know what I mean? And it's right there. We're not the same. We may come from the root, but we're not the same.
There's a distance.
We white. We might as well be white. You know what I mean? But everybody, almost like the Richard Pryor joke, everybody look like somebody you've seen in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? You start seeing like, man, this dude look like this dude look like so-and-so. Like you start, as you move around, you start seeing like where the root got picked from. You start seeing the likenesses. You know what I mean? So it's like, wow, we just from the root and we got planted somewhere else. You know what I mean? And it is, but there is have and have not. There is no middle class. Either you got money or you poor, you got flies in your face. You know what I mean? If you got money and I deal with the ministry work, so I'm dealing with like imams and Catholic priests and things like that, doing like real like Peace Corps type work, right? Building up schools and stuff like that. For in a Muslim country that's 95% Muslim and then 5% like Christian. Then you go to Kenya and it's the flip. You know what I mean? You go over, it's a flip. And you adapting in each environment, and in each environment, how you hold yourself up. You know what I mean? And when I get out there, I'll tell my name, but they gave me the name Mambo, right? Because I said, when we dance, Puerto Ricans dance, we say Mambo or Wepa or whatever, right? And, they was calling me Mambo. I got that name out there, right? And then they kind of like gave me that name. And then, so when all the Kenyans and they were like, Mambo, right? And I was like, what's up, whatever. But they really took a welcome into because, you treat people with peace. You know what I mean? And they'll ask you questions. And when they come over, I say, a lot of Africans here in Harlem, when they sell stuff, or when they come over here, they're more like merchants. But they don't connect with us like even here when they come. They don't really talk to us. And it's just like that over there. They'll use the bathroom, they'll talk the car, go about their business. It's the same thing over there. It's just that the green is green. The Natural Geographics, like I never saw an apex predator, but I seen this shit dead. I've seen zebras eaten. I've seen water buffaloes eaten. If you see an apex predator, it's too late. You
Right,
see no, you don't
yeah.
see no lions and tigers. You don't, but you see them. You see them, and they walk in the groups and their herds, right? And then all of a sudden, you see one dead out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So, but you see like all the stuff you see on Channel 13, imagine the birds are so big. You know what I mean? Like it's so like everything. Like I can compare it to Puerto Rico. Like the colors are so rich, but it's richer because it's from the root. Like the green is green. You know what I mean? And then come here, you got green stuff here, but it's just everything is it just pops a little bit more. But it feels like the West Indies. It feel like it just felt. But a cold day is 105. So it was brothers. It's 72 to 7. Like it get down to 80 dudes wearing hoodies. Like yo, dude, the biggest soldiers, monsters, aggressive. 88 degrees, bro. Hoodie.
Because you adapted, right?
Well,
Yeah.
let's say 105 is a cold day. You know what I mean? And so now brothers like you with the waves, nah. You just put Crisco in your hand for the sun to cook it. You know what I mean? So but that's what I'm telling young cats. I'm like, dude, you know you put Crisco in your head. It's 100. Dude, I know the waves are spinning, but it's melting in your eye, bro. Like we're gonna go dry. You know what I mean? But all they do is just lighten it up. But you still it's a different heat. Like right now, I've been cold since I've been here. You know what I mean? I've been because now we're falling to the 70s. I don't know what this winter gonna be like for me. You know what I mean? But
you came back when?
I came back the end of June.
In June.
Yeah.
Oh, like 20. Okay.
Yeah. So now
And I was telling you, it's one of the first days the AC ain't been on.
Yeah. So this is prime time for me. I'm now the AC. You know what I mean? So it's still kind of like adapting. But then you see like flies. You see little African children with the flies in the commercial. Yo, flies is real out there. Everybody getting the fly in the face. But if you pour, the fly gonna be there even longer. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of flies. It's a lot of flies out there. You know what I mean? So, but it's have and have not. It's have either you got shoes and a place to stay, or you don't. There is no middle class, and you see it, and you can't even drive around because you drive around, you can't stop nowhere. They rush you. And if you get water, if I give water to a little kid, and somebody see that or give something to a little kid, they'll beat that kid up. You know what I mean? So you start learning the ways of how things are done out there.
Different culture.
You want to give. So now when I was going to like orphanages, and what happens is I'm coming to orphanages with bags. As I'm coming there, the mothers are trying to rip the bags
from you.
Yeah, because they like, yo, dude, look, that's a shirt. But I'm dealing with nuns, and I'm dealing with these are for the children. And the only schooling that they're gonna get is through like the Catholic, I guess the rectory and stuff like that. So they have that. So yo, dude, I was there, and I was like, yo, man, God don't like black people. I was like, and then I saw black people who you start looking at. You go into like a mall, and you see the same stuff you see when the kids are acting crazy and like what's the rat? The little playground that they have with the Chuck E. Cheese. They got their version of Chuck E. Cheese out there. You see mothers smacking their kids and whatever. Night and day. You know what I mean? Night and day. You get there like your heart will break. And then on the other end, it's like, yo, they got money. Like you really don't know how to, but I always gave. So when we have like workers on the base and stuff like that, I'll look at you and I'll be like, you by my side? Yeah, I'll fit that shit. You know what I mean? And then when you leave, you kind of leave certain things behind for them to wear. You know what I mean? You leave like shirts, you leave. Because the money for the workers that are on the base, they don't make the same what we make. They making like ridiculously like ridiculous. But that's the currency out there. You know what I mean? So I'll leave like some shirts, this, that, and that. They looking at it like, what else you got? You know what I mean? You leave your sneakers out, them shit's gone. The worker's gonna take that. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, but when you have that, when you know how to deal with people, and especially like this culture teaches you how to deal with people, how to look, what is in need and things like that. I could come and I could say, well, Sunez, you teach small children, right? I have a bunch of notebooks. Would you want them? Sure. Notebooks and pads, boom. You know what I mean? And then the next trip, I'll say, hey, you have X, Y, Z, and it's boom. Now I have a source to get to them. If I go there myself, they're gonna take it. But once I understand like sources and principles, it's like, okay, he's the guy. He's the one that's gonna make sure everybody's giving it out simple. And then when you see the guys come in, ain't no barbershops. There's a dude with the clippers like next assembly line. They all get cut with the same haircut. You know what I mean? But you know, they going through it. Like you see real struggle, and you see like They're not gonna once they get up there. There's no job. They got this thing called cotton, which is like crack out there. They grow it, they home grow it, and that's what they get high off.
Wow.
So you get high off of it.
Yeah, they take the plant, and they get high off the plant, and it's legal.
But they smoke it.
They smoke it. They'll
Cotton
do it.
plants, you saying?
No, cotton. It's like cotton. So it's like
Cotton.
yeah, it's like kind of like a weed leaf.
They say it's like crack.
Yeah, and they smoke it, and they just like you see defeat.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When you see defeat, then it make you. You know when your mother used to say, "There's children in Africa that's starving."
Right.
I saw those kids. You
Right,
see what I
right.
mean?
You see
I saw those kids.
Yeah.
So now I eat. Like when I got back, I gained like 7 pounds. I've been eating, right? Because you see those kids, it's like your mind, you wasn't lying.
So they had the flies on the face, the
They-
stomach.
no, dude. And what happens is that you want to help them,
Right.
but
It's natural.
governments and things like that. They just you see where the government's failing. You see where is the government failing or is the people failing? You know what I mean? You
Well, let's
start
be clear. This is in the Horn. This is in
The
this
Horn.
place that you described because there's other places that are not like that.
No.
Right.
So so the one I'm describing directly is more Djibouti. Yeah. So that right there, man. You know what I mean? You see it and your heart will break. And then what happens when you do your little ministry stuff to kind of teach kids, and they know English and things like that.
They know English.
They'll know because they've been around us. I went to one of I was there, and some of the kids were there, and they were listening to Pop Smoke, right? And I was like, oh, okay, they was dancing. So our culture reaches over there. You know what I mean? Afro beats sound way better over there than it does over here. It's almost like drinking El Presidente in Dominican Republic, or you drink like Banks, the Caribbean beers. When you're in the Caribbean, it's like that over there. You know what I mean? Like everything is just like it's a nice experience. You know what I mean? To see the world, but I'm happy to be home because now I have to get back to my element, my family structure. You know what I mean? But then, like I was trying to buy Sunez books and stuff. I'm like, yo, Amazon, they selling them shits out here, man. I gotta wait till I get back. You know what I mean? So, but one question. Your first book to your last book, how much growth?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. I think when I did the first book, I wasn't sure I could make that many pages cohesive. So, now it's much easier.
Would you write it over if you could?
Nah.
Oh.
No,
I know that with writers, they say like,
Yeah, it's good enough. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's good enough.
All right, Joe, when you get home, it's 10 o'clock. You know where your children are?
Wow, look at that.
Man, I got a wife. She's like, where your ass at?
I'm in the law school building with students.
Yeah, whatever. Get your ass home. That's one thing I like about being in a relationship.
No, why is it that I'm gonna answer that email you sent me? But anything else you want to ask me now? If you have, let me know.
Go for it.
Okay. You should always try to come to the class with questions of your own.
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair. The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
Excuse me, that was a question.
You must do your own research.
I didn't even talk to everybody online here. They've been hearing all this.
Nobody around today.
No, he didn't. He was all.
Truth Rule said is understand the mental picture being drawn up by the mind or seeing things for what they appear to be. No, it's good. Both of those could be wrong. Mental picture you draw up in your mind could be wrong. Seeing things for what they appear to be is usually wrong.
But bring it down from the mind to the reality of everybody else. Like,
I'm gonna say understanding is not any of those things. Right?
That's why when you're doing your understanding, you're talking, talk to somebody that you trust. That's gonna give you honest feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yo, am I bugging? You're like, nah, bro, you ain't bugging. You right. You know what I mean? Or you like, dude, you bugging.
Yeah, for everybody that's online here, like to build, let me put my email in here again.
You gonna check it though?
I'm gonna check it.
Notice they put 3 more pictures up around the father's picture.
I wanted to ask that brother on the right.
Frederick
That's
Douglass.
Frederick Douglass.
So I know it's him.
Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey, the most honorable, the father.
That's like seeing Sunez with his hair down to his shoulders. That's like Frederick Douglass that debated like Abraham Lincoln. You know the Douglas debates. That's how he looked then. And then you see like the dramatic, like where he went white. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Which is you see white hair normally wisdom.
Peace to the earth. Peace to the earth. Yeah, so I'm gonna let everybody go on here. Willing that everything was useful. Peace.
I just want to, I mean,